Happy Wednesday, except that it's Thursday. I don't know where I am. I don't know when I am. What's going on, fellas? It is indeed Thursday, episode 17. We are almost old enough to vote, guys. Check that out. Any moment now, our voice will matter.
Because it hadn't already.
Actually, it was funny. I think I shared with you guys that in the Facebook group there was somebody that joined the Facebook group, and there's a bunch of questions for those that don't know. When you go to join the Ford Lightning, the big 27,000 person strong Facebook group, you have to answer these questions to try to filter out like the fakes. We don't get them all, but and on one of them there's a place where you put comments, and it said in there that they watched our show, and that got them.
Oh, I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, which is super cool.
Awesome.
I know that. Yeah, anytime you see one of those, it kind of like, man, cool. There's at least one person has listened. That's cool.
And it matters. Yeah, and made impacted them. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're watching the show tonight, thank you. Welcome again to Tech Charged. We're happy to have you, and we're glad you're in a Lightning. That is cool.
Very cool.
So what do we got going on this week, fellas? What's new and exciting?
I think based on some news that we heard today, and that you might as well jump right in, that there's some interesting developments within the Ford community right now. And Jace, I don't know if you kind of have the lowdown on this. If you want to tell us.
Well, I just went out in my truck to see what was functioning and what was not. We had heard some rumors and some other things that the public charging app was going to be no more. And I did go in my truck a few minutes ago and tried it, and it is indeed no more. It does not
really. It's already gone.
Longer. It is already gone. Yeah. So lots of mixed feelings about that. I think that's super fresh news. Probably a lot of people don't even know, but if you jump on your public charging app, you'll see that it no longer functions. But really, from my initial standpoint, it doesn't really affect me. I can actually count on one finger the amount of times I use the public charging app. So I was not really sad to see it go in any way, shape, or form. I also, as I've been known to say, I don't really use native nav ever. So, it really just didn't affect me. And I kind of thought it was sort of a convoluted method anyway. I get why they did it at the time, but I do think that the Ford Pass app does, well, I know that the Ford Pass app pretty much does everything that app does, as far as activating chargers and stuff. So it was nice to have the option in the truck, but ultimately I think it was just a layer that a lot of people just didn't seem to really use based on, kind of from what I have gathered from owners and stuff. It wasn't really used except for maybe by some, I don't want to say nerds, but you know what I mean? So people that were using it for very specific circumstances. In general, I don't think a lot of people were using it. So sad to see it go, but we move on, right? We we move on, especially, and I guess we're moving on very quick because it is no longer working.
There's a lot to unwrap here with this charging app because, unlike you, I have used it a lot. I will say that I don't use it at all on EA or Tesla. Strictly because I use their memberships. A lot of people would use EA or Tesla and not the Charge Assist because it's plug and charge. So there's two reasons not to use Charge Assist if you have the membership or if you use plug and charge. But any of those third-party apps that I just don't feel like getting out my phone and dealing with it all. I have one credit card tied to Ford, and any of those apps will work pretty much. I think when we had Robert on, he talked about what was there. Either 15 or 18 different networks tied to the truck through the Blue Oval network.
I think it's
and all of those were available up until today through Charge Assist app.
Right, but they are still available in the Ford Pass app, which is important to remember. But yes, this does remove functionality or an option from within the truck.
Yeah, so that's not necessarily the end of the world, but if you're not one to want to have to get out your phone, which if you're driving a Lightning from early days, you had to, like, there was not a good option. Plug and charge didn't work right early. I've always got out my phone when I'm using Tesla or EA, so we will continue to do so. I'm hoping this means you're going to try to figure out this membership tie account thing, but I don't see that being a big priority for them. The thing that I'm a little disappointed in is without the folks that have the supercharger, the Tesla supercharger native in their nav, you now don't have a way to navigate to those. This, at least with these, they were showing up in Charge Assist, and you could hit that little directional arrow there that shows like this top one, nearby chargers and EVgo. If you click that, it'll send it to your navigation. And that would at least allow you to find and navigate to a Tesla charger. Well, I guess
using
that's
native
gone.
nav. Yeah.
It's-
I mean, I guess you'd have to type one in, manually if you really wanted to do it. I mean, I think it was, the problem was it was location based too for a long time too. So it wasn't easy to like necessarily route, with it either. It wasn't a good routing option.
No.
There's a lot of layers kind of to it. So I kind of see why Ford got rid of it. Me as an owner that doesn't use, native nav and doesn't use it, I initially was like, oh, I thought it was kind of confusing anyway. But the other half of me always says more options are better for the consumer. And so, I mean, it is unfortunate to see it go away, but I'm guessing there's reasons for why it's going. I don't think they would just remove it for no reason.
I think it's kind of buried in that menu for one. So a lot of people don't even know what the hell this is, right? It's buried in that other menu. So really what it should be is when you get to the app, when you're in the navigation and you look up a charge point, EVgo, something that's not plug and charge, and it navigates you to that app. It ought to have it right on the app when you're here and say, would you like to activate charging at this right in the native navigation, rather than go, okay, now that you're here, you exit navigation, you go to some other app on the screen. So I agree with you, Jay. I think it had its limitations and it's very laggy. When you first open it, if you've had it open somewhere else, it makes you think you're in a different location. And then a few seconds later, 5 or 6 seconds later, it'll update and then it'll bring you your current location. So it's got its issues. So I do understand that if they're trying to make it better, that this is something that they need to do.
Yeah. And I do think that overall the Ford Pass app offers a better experience when it comes to this, as far as just it's quicker, it works a little bit better. But like you said, it's a different, habit to take out your phone versus, just doing it right on the infotainment screen. But I think in general, like you said, it was hidden in there. Most people didn't even know about it or knew what it did. And I'm guessing that the data showed that the vast majority of people just simply didn't use it.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how it's one of the cool things about the show is that we all kind of do things so differently, because I'm totally the opposite. Like, I only used it for Tesla and nothing else. And I used it because that's how I would find in my standard range when I didn't have Tesla in the native nav. That's how I would take and find the Tesla chargers on the route that I wanted to find. Then I would save them as a favorite so that I could then go to those. And then I've got, in the standard range, I had this whole picture, like you could see the entire from the Bay Area all the way to San Diego and all the way to Vegas, all the way out to Arizona. Really, you could see all like my favorite Tesla superchargers that were saved in there, which kind of simulated as though I had Tesla chargers in the native navigation, because although obviously it wasn't all of them, they were my strategic favorites that I knew had amenities. I knew had lots of chargers. I knew could get me between all of them. And so over the past, 3 years, I had built up. I almost wish I could have exported that into my new truck. It would have been cool if that would have followed the profile in some way that, when you went from
your 25 has it in the native nav now, so you can just go wherever you want to go.
Yeah. But that was the only time I used it. I used it for that purpose. And then I guess now it'll and it's all in there for the 25, but for all those people that were using it, I guess now they can use their phone. I don't know if there's it's always funny to me, and this seems to be a pattern too. This is another example where they make these navigations, and this is a Better Route Planner does this, and I feel like maybe Apple Maps does this and some others, where you can't get to all the functions or all the things on the screen using the screen. And
which could
and then
be
the whole,
Apple limitations, by the way. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's from the app. Apple's very, very cagey about CarPlay and what they allow and what they don't allow. I've actually seen some
Google,
weird
same
stuff
way.
where they allow My Radar, but Radar Scope has been trying to get a radar on CarPlay for literally like 10 years, and Apple won't do it. But they did it with another app. It's just, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, same thing with Android Auto. So Radar Scope doesn't show up either. I have that one, but I use Weather and Radar, and they have one that shows up. And when you're stopped, you can play the animation. So it's kind of
And
interesting.
Radar Scope will tell you, like, they have tried to work with Apple to make a great radar on the CarPlay screen, or even just something that people could use, and Apple will not allow it.
So it looks like, Chris, we're both commenting, but if you'll just unclick that all down the bottom and just click turn around for what, it doesn't double it up.
that's
On the
what's going
comments
on here.
there.
I was like, why doesn't it show as my name? It shows me as your name. That's
It's going all.
interesting.
Just FYI,
Oh,
we've
you know
got
what it is?
technical
It's because-
difficulties in the background here.
Watch us as we learn podcasting together. So it's because normally it would stream to my channel, but it's streaming to your channel, so it's commenting as look at that, we're learning something new.
Yeah,
on
there's
live
a,
podcasting.
and we've got this new banner here. I assume everybody can see it that shows the comments as we're live, and then we can still click one to make it big to kind of highlight it. So, new toys. Same thing with the Lightning. That's our
Right.
first bit of, we got more new toys here. The first bit of news was they're killing the Charge Assist app. So it's I shouldn't use the word killing. It sounds like killed. It's gone. I haven't looked at my truck.
It has been cold.
Yeah, there must have been. There must have. I think to do it that fast without any notice. Nobody knew this was coming. You could have gotten your truck today, trip planned in your head, and it's just not there. Did you find, Jay, specifically on that screen that the app icon is just missing?
No, the app icon's there, but when you open it, it opens to basically a message that says you can now do this in FordPass.
Okay. So they didn't pull things from people's truck. They just pulled the website, if you will, that it was linked to.
Yeah, it just goes to a different page.
Breach or a security issue or something to happen that fast without any notification.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I was curious. I was curious what the reason was, and it is interesting because then I went in there and it came up with a barcode that you're able to scan, but then it went away and I could get back into the charging app again, which was odd. I don't know if that's
but if you press it, I had the same thing, but then if you go and try to press on a charger, it goes back to the QR code.
Oh, interesting. I didn't go that far. I was just like, oh, hey, it's still coming.
I didn't try to use direction though. I just pressed on the charger. I didn't try to make it do the directions. I wonder if maybe that will still work. That's possible. I could go try and come back and report back.
Interesting. So, yeah, and so I guess before we kind of transition to the other stuff, Martin, is now the idea though is that you use your phone. Which is, again, so weird to me because the whole idea is that for safety, everything should be on the screen, but then they lock things out or they change things or they remove things. And then it forces you to grab your phone, which is the very thing that you're not supposed to be doing to begin with. So I've always been
but I mean, I think if you're sitting, if you're activating a charger, you should probably be sitting at that charger.
Yeah, but it's not only used for that. It's used to find chargers, right? And so, although again, most of the time I was doing that in my driveway, the night before a trip or something like that. But
you bring up a good point. I think if Ford plans to reintroduce a route planner in the app, then this decision makes a lot more sense, right? Like then we go, okay, now I can see why this is happening because plans are in the works. We don't know that's the case. I would guess that they are probably working on that, but we just simply don't know.
So I just thought I'd share this real quick. So if you're in your FordPass app, you can still see the public charging that's there, and then from public charging, it's going to show you, Yeah,
it's like it's almost the exact. It is the exact same thing, just shown differently.
All right, Chris. You're gonna have to show us what you're doing, how you're doing this.
That's just to the iPhone. It just basically mirrors the iPhone to the computer,
Yeah.
and then I shared the screen. So
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know if it'll do the same thing with the Android system or not.
Yeah,
Because
Android,
I'm going.
I think so. Actually, I just didn't know how you were doing it. I was like, how are you?
No, just
I thought it was a picture at first, and then you're showing us something live. I'm like, hey, this is in California. This is live.
Yeah. No, it's just because I've got the Mac Mini and I've got the iPhone. Of all the things that I have not enjoyed about Apple, as far as Android Auto versus Apple CarPlay, this is one of the things that is cool. How it can just
Yeah.
kind of
Continuity
We
is
have
really
screen
cool.
mirroring too.
Yeah.
And I have it connected to my computer. I guess I should try that and then share a screen. But yeah,
But yeah,
you know,
like
it's funny
is
because there's this huge Apple versus Android battle, has been for years, and it
Yep.
shows up in Apple CarPlay and Android. But when you actually use the two phones, other than some, I'm going to say minor differences, I don't think they're that hugely different
I
anymore.
completely agree.
Not like they used to be.
Yep,
yeah,
I agree.
they're super similar. I mean, it really comes down to certain features that you might use. Like in our family's case, it was because the iPhone was super easy for my daughter to have as a first phone, and my
And
wife already
FaceTime,
had.
like the ecosystem, I think plays
Yes.
a role. And if you have friends that are in one or versus the other, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that really,
Exactly. So it kind of forced my hand, and I was like, well, I need to, and then they got all of me, man. At that point, like it just coincidentally, my I had like the Microsoft Surface that I had for quite a while. That's what I was using all the way up until this past holiday. And then that died. And so I was all right, well, I'm already, next thing you know, I've got the iPad, I've got the Mac, the new Mac Mini, the M4. My wife's a teacher, so she got it
Nice.
for like
yep,
$400 or something. It was crazy.
that's awesome.
So that's what I use for this. And then the iPhone, it all just integrates. And so yeah, like it just pops right up on the screen. And
I have
yeah,
either
so this
M4
is
or I do. I have M4 Pro, MacBook Pro. I can't remember if it's an M4 or M3, but
I
it
didn't
works
go
great.
pro. I didn't go pro spec. That'll have to be maybe Mac will buy back mine and I can get a pro spec. That's my
Yeah,
upgrade
you're all right.
ladder
You're
up there.
plugged into a wall. You'll be fine. You got plenty of juice.
So yeah, I went to the app and I just went to see, well, now that I can't see it that way, what's the other way? And like, this is a
22
common-
available. Oh,
there's a
it's
little-
just, it's funny when we see this stuff because we here, or 22, total. We don't have that here. The most we have is 8.
This is one of my favorite chargers. It's between my house and work, and I started. It's right around the corner from Lucid, is where this one was. It's where we when we did the Ford adapters. This is where we did the Mach-E and the Lightning meetup here, and kind of showed everybody the adapters when it first got released to us, Jace. Yeah, so this is kind of my go-to that I use as an example because it's always got plenty of capacity and it's a great stop.
I wonder if you're in the truck and you hit that navigate button, does it actually navigate you to something?
Yeah, it's. I need to test
screen
that.
you're on.
Yep.
I wonder if it'll actually, if you click that little button, does it
would
do
say
anything,
Apple
or is it
Maps,
telling you?
blah, blah,
That's
blah,
what-
Google Maps. Yeah.
Yeah, when I
exactly.
tried it outside of the truck, I have not tried it in the truck, but outside of the truck, which I also find maybe it's because the truck's not on and I'm not in it. I guess I could remote start the truck. I wonder what would happen.
It won't. Yeah, it
No.
won't. It'll do exactly what
you
it's
did-
doing. Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze.
If you did Google Maps and had Apple or Android Auto, that would precondition and route you to the charger.
Yeah.
Google Maps
Yes.
is going to open in Android Auto, but Apple
Correct.
Maps, still won't precondition. I don't understand that,
Correct.
but most of the time you don't need it. This time of the year, we don't need it at all. For those who are listening and you're wanting to know about preconditioning, you don't need it unless
if you're a
it's
Lightning
below
owner.
50 degrees.
If you're a
Yeah.
Lightning owner. Let's just
Yeah,
let's preface that.
Mach-E
If you're a
does
Mach-E
little-
owner,
it's a
you
little
might- you
more
might
finicky.
do it.
We saw
Yeah.
160 kilowatts at 65 degrees the other day in the Mach-E, so it's really good when it's over 50. So
What do you think about these California
you can still
prices, though?
activate and everything through here. It looks like.
Yep.
Yeah, which I
It's
love.
basically the same exact thing. There's really
Yeah.
no difference between this and the website. It's all the same info. It's going to the same place. They just, for some reason, and I really do think in my initial reaction, like I said, because I don't use that often, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like I never thought the public charging truck app was well done. Sorry
No.
for it, but I just thought it was very, very slow. At first, you couldn't use it while you were driving, and there were all sorts of limitations. Then they opened it up a little bit better. It got a little better. It never really got any quicker though. You know, I just think in general that the Ford Pass app is a better experience for most people. But like I said earlier, but the other half of me always, you know, preaches options, and there's no doubt about it. This definitely removes an option. So
Yeah, and it's not like we weren't chasing Tesla as it was. If you've ever route planned and went anywhere in a Tesla, it's kind of seamless on the screen. It does it for you. You don't have to look and search. And Tesla even has the ability now to navigate, I think, to non-Tesla stops through CCS.
Yes, I believe
recently
on certain cars and certain updates you can.
R15 does. The one that
isn't
the
that
15
funny that isn't that funny though that it's always like the navigation. I feel like that's the biggest updates and the biggest issues, right? And like even people with Tesla and really particularly Rivian complain about the slow loading of the satellite maps and just route planning in general. And it just seems to me like navigation is just one of those things. I don't know.
That's exactly why I use Google, because it is fast. It preloads the maps in the background. I still haven't found anything better. So
I do like Apple Maps, but I'll tell you just have to know that it's not going to be accurate when it comes to your you know, you just add 5 to 10% and know that that's what, you know, you need to add on. But we use it constantly, and especially now that as Tesla superchargers, I just unless I want really, really granular exact information, then I would do a BRP Pro. But for the most part, if I'm only doing a 2 to 3 stopper, I think Apple Maps is fine for most people. You just have to know that it's not going to be accurate.
So here's my thing with two things. So one, Martin, you gave me one of your old Google Android phones. I could not get it to work. It didn't have CarPlay, or it didn't have Android Auto installed for some reason. And I don't know if that has to be. Yeah. So maybe when you're in town, we can play with it again and you can show me what knuckleheaded thing I'm doing wrong. But I still have not been able to test and try Android Auto.
Well, that was an S22. It wasn't very old.
Yeah. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but it didn't seem to connect, or it didn't seem to want to.
Yeah, if it wasn't picking up for Android Auto, then that's not any good. You won't be able to use it there, because there's not really an Android Auto app. It's just part of the phone. I mean, you can. That's not correct. There is an app, but it's not something you open the app and do a bunch of settings in Android Auto app. It's just kind of part of the background. But you might have had to go to the Play Store and re-download the base software, because there is updates. I mean, that was one of the things when they did Google EV routing, you had to update Android Auto to make sure it was up to a certain patch level. But anyway,
but Jace, on the Apple Maps, where I had a dilemma is, you know, whether even if it's only 3 stops. So let's say I'm going from here to Southern California, right? And that would be less than 3 stops. But let's just say it was 3. I was going all the way to San Diego and I wanted to do 3 stops. And so I go and it puts them in. Are you manually putting them in? Because when I let it like route plan for me, I had no clue where I was going. So if like Patrick and Liv from Maki Vlog want to say, "Oh, hey, you're coming to Southern California, where are you stopping for a charge?" I'm like, I don't know. I can't. Can you see where you're stopping for a charge? Because I can't see it. Anytime not in your phone though, on your actual screen too. I mean, maybe it's on your phone, but
you could kind of, I guess, view the route and see kind of where you're stopping. But yeah, it doesn't exactly say like here, stop at this one. But yeah, you would have to jump on your phone to be able to see exactly what stop it is. And then you can
right there.
Copy it. And then
I downloaded it. And I had it for about a week and tried it. Apple CarPlay. I had an old iPhone for my daughter and tried it, and that was the game changer, or the deal breaker for me. Was I have to be able to see where I'm going, because half the time it wants to route me to these crap chargers in Kansas and Oklahoma that don't work. Or
for that I would use preferred networks. So for that, you would set a preferred network and only have it use those preferred networks. That works really well, actually, and it's something that, from what I've heard, is Google is actually doesn't have. Which Google, I'm kind of surprised.
Google hasn't. While we're talking about this, Google has
by network, I should say, not
by network. Google has a new update. In Google EV routing, Android Auto, before you could go 50 kilowatts or faster filter.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 50, 150, or 350 and faster.
Nice. Which is what it should. Yeah, that's what it should be, because 50 is your EV Go, your old EV Goes.
Yeah.
You know, that would use for CHAdeMO. your 150s are pretty standard, Electrify America,
Well,
and your
it's not.
350 is.
But
That
isn't it funny
sucks if you're
though
doing
that
auto route
that's
planning.
but that's the goofy part is that these apps just like everybody has their one thing that like
Yep.
you wish you could just combine them
You wish
all
you could-
into
yeah.
one app
Well,
because
honestly,
it's just like
though,
come
Jay,
on.
A better route planner is the
It is.
absolute best for route planning. I just hate the way it navigates. If it navigated like the Google EV routing or even the factory navigation does, I would use it all the time
Mhm.
because it tells you like lives. They've got that little circle in the corner with how many stations, and it'll tell you
Yep.
live if they're reporting. Tesla does. Google doesn't do that really. But I
Yep.
love the new update because
Apple
I
does,
really
but
wanna
only for
talk
Blink
about
and ChargePoint, which is
Right.
weird.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like you'll see ChargePoint and Blink, but you won't see pretty much any other network. But it'll tell you 2 of 2 available or in use, whatever, under repair, but only for those 2 networks. Nobody else.
My
Yeah.
problem. So a better route planner is what I always end up going back to. It's been accurate. I haven't had a problem with how it was routing me, but maybe it's because I don't know any better. Like it. And on that one, I can at least hit the little eye icon for information, and I can
Yeah.
scroll through where it's sending me.
Your stops, yep.
Yeah.
So I like that.
A little bit of info.
It is fine for me, with the exception of, again, it won't let me do anything other than what is recommended. If I pre-planned it on my computer, then I can pick and I can save it as one, and it's good to go. But if I was the 2 things I found was, let's say in mid-drive, I have more or less efficiency than I thought. And this is something I experienced a lot because I was getting heavy wind. You guys out there, is that called that's normal? Is that normal wind? Because,
Hell
oh
yeah.
my God,
50
man.
mile an hour, 40 mile an hour across Kansas.
This has been
that
the
happens every other month.
windiest like March or windiest first quarter or whatever for the continental US in like decades. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's been windy,
I-
but we don't get no wind. You drive across I-70 from Kansas City to Denver, you're going to get 30 to 40 mile an hour all the time.
Dude, at one point I was getting 1.2, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And but on average, I was like 1.5. Now that was like 80, 85 miles an hour, because apparently that's a thing out there.
Oh yeah.
There are no 80 mile an hour speed limits in
I have
in my
griped
part of
about Blue
California.
Cruise not working over 80 for a reason.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I always thought you were being reckless. I'm like, why do you need to be going above 80 anyway?
You'll get
Like,
run over.
I-5 out here, speed limit 75, and then maybe you go 5 over at 80, and you're not going to get a ticket. But it's
70 is standard here, but in northern Michigan it's 75 as well.
Yeah, so that seeing a speed limit that said 80, 85, I was like, oh
That's
my
crazy.
God, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That is thoroughfares. 70, I-40, that's those main highways. When you get down into my area, it's 65 mile an hour everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Kansas, it's all 65 except for the major highways.
So my thing is that, to me, and this is just where, having seen Tesla early on before I ever had an EV and just experienced it with my sister and friends and whatever, I guess, that was my first introduction to the idea of route planning. So now everything after that just feels irritatingly deficient. Like I don't know if it's almost like, so I remember the first time I ever went to Lucid, and I was doing a test drive at Lucid, and I had asked them if they had ever been in the Lightning, and they said no. And I took them on a drive in the Lightning. We did a 0 to 60 in their parking lot. It was amazing. And they all were shocked. They all couldn't believe the speed of a truck that big, and they couldn't believe how quiet it was, because the motors in the Lucid are not quiet. Same thing with the Rivian, right? They're not. So if you've never been in a Lightning, I just imagine somehow that all of these software engineers are like those guys from Lucid that I ran into. They only knew their product, and they had never been in anybody else's product.
Mhm.
And I don't, obviously that can't be true, but
Chris, I haven't
Like-
driven them all, but I've driven a lot of them, and I will give credit to the NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness engineers at
Yeah.
Ford for having the quietest EV on the market. And I'm talking about the Lightning.
I almost
Yep.
wonder if the
Even the
gas,
Mach-E's louder.
did the gas powered truck help the EV, because they put so much NVH for the gas powered truck to make it quiet, that if all of that comes over to the EV, which is already inherently quieter,
Well,
now it's
it
super
has
quiet.
to, because it's the same cabin.
Yeah.
They're identical. The
So
dash, the doors, the door panels, the roof. It's all the same stuff. You could take a Lightning cab off and put it on an F-150.
So yeah, I just feel like taking those engineers and being like, each and every one of you needs to go and spend a month in a Tesla, drive it somewhere that's 1,000 miles away, come back
The
and do
problem
your
is
job
though,
better.
the problem with it is the fragmentation, and that's just where it all breaks down. Is it the behind the scenes are not the same when Tesla owns the chargers versus everybody else owning the chargers, and then you add on all the other
Tesla owns
crap
the
that we see.
software.
Exactly,
They're all vertically
They-
integrated, no
Yes,
modules.
and so it's just it's not comparing apples to apples, but I get it.
You're
You
right.
know, I get it.
Even-
It's frustrating, but to say, just to put a Ford engineer in a Tesla product, which a lot of them drive Teslas, by the way, I know they do. They've seen it, they've been around it, but they know that it's physically impossible to match what they have unless they were going to go out and build their own charging network, which is simply just not going to happen.
Well, even without it, though, they have the Tesla network now. So up until the point where you're going to navigate to it and you have to get out and grab your adapter, Ford is not that dissimilar from John Deere, where I work. They're very fragmented in the company. We're not as vertically integrated. So one department, marketing versus supply chain versus engineering, it's not that we don't talk, but we stay in our lane, right?
Yeah,
and I think with Tesla, they're vertically integrated through the company as well. So marketing has to agree with the engineers, who has to agree with supply management. We're going to do it this way. I'm only saying that because I am speculating. Let's be clear. But I'm saying that's obviously how they're doing it when you drive one, and it all feels cohesive through the software, through the car. Everything feels like these people work together on this. Now, we've all talked about the Tesla having their quality issues with the car build and how great the actual robust longevity is. So I think they're doing two things right: software and the longevity of the hardware. But then you get into all the other stuff, door rattles and things don't fit and things are failing that are stupid that shouldn't be. And I think that's where
the funny part. You mentioned that they all work together, but then it's funny that they struggle with the panels not fitting together, and then it's the basics. So it's just like the charging apps. Nobody can be perfect, right? Everybody's got their little thing that can be nitpicked, and I guess that's why it's a good thing there's competition to push these things ahead. But I guess of all the automakers, I will credit Ford with, first of all, creating the Blue Oval Charge Network. They were way ahead on that, which I think helped big time, comparative to only comparing, of course, to other legacy OEMs, not compared to Rivian and Tesla, of course. But the Blue Oval Charge Network was a big step and allowed Ford EV, not just Ford EV chargers or drivers, all EV drivers, which we learned the other day. Even if you don't have a Ford EV, you can still use the Blue Oval Charge Network, which is very cool. And that's something that I didn't even think about or know that Robert mentioned and on Twitter. And, so I think they did some good stuff. They partnered with Tesla early on. They were the ones that kind of started that whole thing. But yeah, is it enough? I don't know. Maybe not. But, I think they're doing, oh, we lost Chris. But they're doing, as best as they can when it comes to legacy OEMs. But I think you're right that there's fragmentation on the back end, but there's also fragmentation within the company itself, as many big companies struggle.
Yeah, I mean, you get compartmentalized, and it's difficult to have a cohesive. And I struggle with that every day at work. I really try to get a hold of the other departments and try to get everybody to work together. And then not only that, you have different divisions. So the EV division is going to be different from the gas division, which is going to be different from the corporate division, and they all have their own fragmentation within the division. So you get out and you get a Lightning. That's why those feel so much different. And then you go get in a Lincoln Nautilus, and why it feels so much different. Like it's almost a different company. Sometimes I was working on a 2020 Lincoln Aviator, updating all the FDRS using modules and stuff. That car didn't feel anything like the Lightning. I mean, nothing felt similar other than the fact that I was updating it with the same stuff. They did have Sync, which Sync gives you that cohesive feel between lines. But other than that, you can tell this is designed by a different group of engineers.
Which Doug Field has addressed,
and
he said this is going to change. Like it has to change. We're going to give you 3 choices of displays to choose from. That's all you get. You have to design your vehicle within one of these 3 hardware, display options. And I think you start to see that now, right? Like if you go into Lincoln Nautilus and you go in an Expedition, you can see the similarities. That was not the case last year. You'd get in an Expedition and you saw F-150. It was very it was very clear.
I think
the stuff that's coming
the big screen, doesn't it, Jace?
Mm-hmm.
The 25 Expedition has the set 15-inch screen.
Yeah. No, the 25 Expedition has the coast to coast display, but it doesn't go all the way across like the Nautilus. It comes across right here.
Is there a Lincoln
or
it has a vertical screen? One of them has. I saw in one of the other day has a vertical screen. One of them.
The 24 Expedition had the vertical screen, but they removed it for the 25. But the 24 Expedition had the exact same screen as the Lightning. It was the same. I actually just messed around with it at Ford.
So if it's got the Lightning style vertical screen, that's still using Sync 4A. If it's got the Nautilus Expedition new stuff,
and it's a whole design language. Like they've got the Squircle, just like the Nautilus has. Like it's a whole, the pads instead of volume up, volume down. Like it's a total redesign with the design language, completely.
And that's what Doug's team is doing, right? That's going to be what we start to see in the 27, 28, whatever that next gen is, right? Yeah. That's what we should anticipate. It's in that style.
I would even expect possibly by that time, like Ford Digital Experience 1.1, 1.5, 2.0, whatever they want to call it. Like by that time, I could see it being upgraded even further than what it is right now.
So it makes it interesting.
Particularly because it needs to do eyes off too. Was the goal was eyes off by 2026.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
But Jim reiterated that not that long ago, which was very surprising to hear.
Dude, 2026, I don't have a watch right now. Normally I do, but 2026 is you can imagine a watch.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I would say that if your vehicle comes equipped with 1.5, I would think that you may be able to have eyes off on your vehicle.
Are there LiDARs on those?
I don't know what they'll do, to be honest with you. Just like if you have 1.5, I don't think there's any difference, but I just think hardware-wise that we're getting close enough to eyes off that we're going to start seeing vehicles that are coming off the factory lines now that will be able to do eyes off.
So this would be eyes off freeway. This would not be surface street.
It's just like Blue Cruise plus eyes off.
So like level 4 plus or something, 4.5.
I think it's still level 3.
It would be level. It'd be level like 2.5/3.
Well, I was thinking level 5 was full self-drive, eyes off, completely unattended.
Eyes off just meaning you could probably take your eyes off for maybe a few minutes. I'm not sure they're saying eyes off completely. But in Ford's term, from what I understand and what Jim has said, eyes off Blue Cruise would be like a level 2.5.
Okay.
I'm imagining eyes off and you take a nap and suddenly you end up, it's not going to take the off ramp for you. It's just going to keep going straight. So
which we don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what level of integration they would go with.
They would loosen it up just a little though. I mean, you can't even take a drink out of a cup for very long and it's yelling at you. You guys know this. Everybody who has a Lightning Blue Cruise knows this.
Yeah. I mean, I see it both ways, but I mean, yeah, I still love it compared to not having it.
Oh, me too. Not complaining.
I keep going off on different tangents. But let me wrap up one thought from the last tangent, and then I'll go on to a new tangent.
Yeah.
The thing that is missing though from Better Route Planner that I want all these guys to do is that when I'm trying to change, something has changed. Now I'm getting 1.2 miles per kilowatt hour, or the opposite. The wind is now in my favor, and I don't want to stop with 31% state of charge when I can continue. I want to be able to just look at my navigation screen, tap a destination. I want to know where the heck it is, Apple Maps, and then I want to delete it. And then I want to click on another one and add it.
Yeah.
I want to see
all my available options. The only way to do that is basically from the phone. Which I just wondered too. I do wonder where we're running. Yeah, and like where we're running into exactly the limitations of what they're allowing you to do. On
government regulation is saying you're not going to touch the screen that much.
But Tesla does
certain things, which is completely. If we get into that, let's unpack that real quick. There is so
But
much.
Tesla's willing to take the risk. These big companies.
Yeah,
aren't.
but there is so much crap on the Lightning navigation screen or any of the screens that you can touch and do that is just as dangerous as let me change
Sure.
my route or do something. I mean, the random crap that they say you can't do because the vehicle's moving, or in the Lightning, you got a passenger. Oh, there's an override button. I'll click that and now I can do it. I mean, somebody's just throwing it over the fence and saying, "Oh, if we get this, we're checking the box that the government's happy." Come on, guys. In reality, either touch the screen or don't. I mean,
Yeah, Tesla,
there's
even
too
though
much
Tesla
that.
doesn't have the number of overall vehicles and are not they're worth more than any of these legacy auto companies are, and then they're
But should they
huge.
be?
Hey, it depends on who you
Yeah.
listen to. Somebody,
Hey, Gary Black apparently
Gary Black.
sold all his shit. I was like, whoa,
That's-
holy mackerel.
that's who I was thinking. Yeah, that's exactly
That was
what I
a
was
big
thinking
one.
of. He was just
like, wow.
he's like, man, well, it's crazy because the stock was way down at like 240 again, and now it's all the way back up and almost a 400 again. It's such a bipolar stock, man.
It's
and
crazy.
I don't think the numbers are gonna look great this quarter. It's gonna be interesting to see what those
I don't see how they could.
all the cyber 48-hour test drives and all that kind of stuff they're doing. They're trying to get numbers. They're not gonna hit those numbers again. I'm curious what they're gonna have come out, but yeah, I would love to. I will admire about Tesla, man. They are an ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of company.
Absolutely,
and then even
no doubt,
even when they get themselves in trouble, they'll just ignore you. They don't have a comms team. They don't have a press team. They're just like la la la. Like, I'm not listening, and they just go about their business, and they almost always get away with it.
Almost always, yeah. It'll be the hardware 3/4 thing will be very interesting to see if they get away with that. And if they can't deliver on FSD, like
Tesla Joy, it's bad. I don't know if you saw this, but Tesla Joy put out a video about her hardware 3, and it was I had not seen a video like that from someone like her in a long time. And it basically was like, hey, I don't buy my cars every 2 or 3 years. I buy them and I drive them into the ground. I buy them every 8 years. And when I bought this car, it was supposed to have this ability to do this thing that it can't do with hardware.
On the website, and they removed it. And people have it screenshotted. They said every Tesla will be able to have full self-driving capability.
And some of those folks paid $15,000 for their FSD, and so
Cyber 500 miles of range. It was supposed to have this range extender. People bought the Cybertruck thinking the range extender was coming, and then they extinguished it. So, they do what they want, like Chris said, and we'll see how far that gets them. But so far, it's worked. I mean, they're still here.
He said he was gonna that all the hardware 3s were gonna get updated to hardware 4. So I think he said that when the last earnings call.
He did say that it's a matter of that actually happening. Yeah, but
going through.
Yeah, but he did say that they would do it, and it would be long and painful and cost like $1 billion or something. There were a couple things that he said. I don't know. Yeah, that'll be very interesting. We'll see what happens there.
But so we tangented 16 times,
right?
But we had some other exciting news now that we've been in this for 45 minutes.
Hold your gunpowder. I have one more tangent to wrap up.
You got one more. Okay, Chris, go for it.
Just wanted to point out that with something that's new to Blue Cruise, something that I didn't realize and that caught me by surprise. Even when you're not in Blue Cruise, if you're just in the lane centering like I was used to in the highways that don't support Blue Cruise, the eye sensors still work, and it still wants you to pay attention, and it still beeps at you, and it still lane changes. That was interesting.
That is new. That did not do that. In my truck that had, I don't know if it did it on 1.4. I'd have to see, but I don't think it did it. But
you're saying lane centering, not pre-mapped hands-free Blue Cruise roads. You can click the turn signal and it moves over.
It changed lanes for me. It blew my mind. I was
mine does it too.
Yeah, so you should try that in yours.
I have the same software that you guys do, so I'm gonna go try that tonight when we get.
It works. It's like whoa,
that works.
The first time I did it, I couldn't believe it.
That works.
I know. The first time I did it, I couldn't believe it, and I showed it to Justin, and he did it on his truck as well.
All right. And I'm
next
guessing
week,
that
I'll report back on 23s that have been upgraded to the new Blue Cruise if that works. Then we'll have a trifecta of this works.
And I don't think it worked on my 22 that was updated to 1.4. So I'm pretty darn sure.
You're talking about your standard range now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our extended range both have 1.4, and I don't think it worked.
Oh, see, I was thinking the extended range would, but the standard range. No, but you had Blue Cruise on it. No, never mind. All right.
Blue Cruise
I was
is
thinking
what
mine
the difference
didn't.
is. It has nothing to do with the battery. That battery sometimes brought different levels.
He was just saying because he thought my standard range didn't have Blue Cruise.
Right.
Yeah, but then I remembered, of course, it did. Okay. Because I think it's got those side sensors. Like, so my standard range that didn't have Blue Cruise lacked the sensors on the side of the bumper that would allow it to see the lane to the left or to the right.
Those are
so that would make.
That has nothing to do with that. There is a sensor behind the bumper deal above the bumper. It's like in that filler panel piece. That's where the sensor is.
It's not.
But it may not have been in your standard range either. Yeah, those in the bumper that you can physically see front and rear bumpers are parking sensors.
But my park assist does. I don't have park assist either, by the way.
Like, it doesn't park itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, they took away park assist from all the trucks. Yeah,
that's different too. The parking sensors are when you're getting close to a bollard building, it starts beeping at you.
This is why we have Tech Charged, to explain from the person that's taking these apart.
But yeah, auto park
sensors are doing.
Auto park was removed because nobody used it, and it was quote unquote, and it was removed from basically like not just EVs. It was removed from the entire Ford lineup because they said nobody used it, and it was something crazy. Like, they could save $150 million by eliminating auto park within the first quarter. It was I can't remember what it was, but it was something nuts, and they eliminated it, so it's gone.
2 lane, meaning 2 lane, one direction.
2 lane. If it was 2 lanes in a I only did it on a freeway.
Correct. I did it on this. When I do it, it happens on a freeway too.
So I have not tried it. If there's 1 lane and you don't have a place to move over.
Correct.
Place close to me that's got 2. I'm gonna go try it tonight. I want to know this now.
I'll take a video when it does it next time. I might even have one because I showed it to Justin. He was like, "What? Like, I couldn't believe it." I'm like, "I know, I couldn't believe it either." And it even did the whole animation and everything.
Yes. Holy crap. It did. And now I'll need to, now that you bring that up,
the new animations, because we have you have the new one though, right, Martin, with the big 2 white lines, not the tiny.
Yep, I'm fully up to date now. Fully up to date.
So it should do it. I would be surprised if it doesn't.
Right. Yeah, the main street that's out, in front of my house, Mission Boulevard, which is a big long street here in the Bay Area. It's 2 lanes both directions with a big center median. So I'll have to test if I put it there.
Correct, Jim. That would be like an unmapped, divided highway. But I want, because there are areas where it's mapped, but it's not a Blue Cruise zone, if that makes sense. So that could play a role in that too, that it is mapped.
But Blue Cruise is not on. We need to dig into that, find somebody who actually knows, because I have found that lane centering in my 80,000 miles of Lightning travel is wholly dependent on the marks on the road, the lines.
That's what I found. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It will lane center on anything.
It's going to take it. If that lane goes off, you have to grab the wheel. It's going to take the exit. It's trying to follow that line. So I don't know if that Jim's point is an unmapped divided highway. Is it a undivided? I mean, we need to figure out if it has something, if there is, because Jason, I'm really curious if what you're saying is right. There could be something there that it could be a mapped highway, but it's not mapped for Blue Cruise, hands-free.
Or it's turned off because of construction. I've seen that before too, where the cones are closed, so it'll just turn off Blue Cruise, but it's still technically a mapped area, but Blue Cruise is not on. Does that make sense?
That just happened.
There's some caveats there.
The freeway out here, 880, they're doing repaving, and there are no line markers, and so it went from Blue Cruise was available, and then it got to the area that had just been. What's that?
I believe. And I think somebody at Ford, maybe our folk tell us. I believe that Blue Cruise still has to see the lines, even on a mapped road.
Does.
I think it's still looking at the line.
It does.
No, it does. Yeah, because as soon as I got to that repaved surface, it immediately turned off.
But it can do more. It can do longer streaks. Like, let's say you only go to one lane or one line. It's been said to be able to do
Yeah.
longer stretches of that than before. I know here we have sometimes where like the snow will cover it, the plow didn't push it all the way over, and for like 20 feet it's covered. One like the let's say the right side lane. And where before like 1.0 would just like, even with the 20 feet, it would like be like, nope, I'm not doing it, or just go back to even like lane centering. But now I remember when I drove 1.3 for the first time in Detroit, there was like a specific section where he was like, look, like there's 50 feet of, just one line, and it acted like nothing was a matter, it was pretty cool. So, they definitely are better in that category.
Cool. We definitely learned something.
Yeah.
If you can lane change lanes, I'm going to have to try this. I haven't got to try the in lane repositioning. If you go over to a screen in the truck, I think you're the one who told me this. Physically move over on the screen, it'll light up that one side in a brighter color. And I haven't got to try that yet either. But I'm
sort of, yeah. The new one, it's not a brighter color. Yeah, it's not a brighter color, but it gives you 2 blue bars, and it makes one of the bars skinnier, essentially, than the other bar.
That's what it would show you. When I say bright up, you get more color on that side. I know that I felt it move over before, but it's not dramatic. It's like it just edges, just kind of scooches over.
You wouldn't even notice. You would almost think it was like a little bit of a wiggle in the road, because you wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, it's getting over, which was... long story. Yeah, there's a long story involved. But yes, it you wouldn't notice right away. But because you have the animations on the newer trucks, it literally shows you. And so it's very easy to be like, oh, I can see what it's doing.
If we pick this all the way back out to high level to just let's drive our car, I don't trust that anyway, not because of the lightning or the technology. I don't trust the guy in the semi to stay in his damn lane. He'll scoot, and the truck's like, I'm staying where I'm supposed to be. And I'm like, I turn it off when there's a lot of traffic. I hate to say it.
No, I don't blame you.
I've been turning it off for traffic, but not because I don't trust it, because the dang thing drives like a 14-year-old. Like it oh man, it's really
the acceleration and the deceleration is probably a lot, especially because you're in a lot of traffic.
Yes, yeah. And that's what I just tried it again this morning. It was funny because I was going up to Alameda. It was stop and go traffic, and it would go, and there would be like some car would merge out of the lane in front of me, and I would have the thing set at like 65, and I was going 20, and it goes from 20 and it tries to get to 65, and meanwhile I'm looking at brake lights. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And then of course it gets close enough to see not to see the brake lights. It doesn't. It just sees a big mass in front of it.
Slams on the brakes.
It slams on the brakes. I'm like, bro, you have regenerative braking. Let off the accelerator. It's going to slow down in a smooth way.
I almost feel like within Blue Cruise, they don't utilize regenerative braking on the Lightning because it's the same stack that comes from the F-150, which does not have regenerative braking.
Well, again, it does. You can see it on the dash. You'll get a little bit of it, but it does it so hard and so fast that you get combo.
Well,
you get both brakes. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I've ever seen it use regenerative braking. It just boom.
We'll go like, test mine. You go test yours. We'll report back next week. Because if you put it on blue down a road and then it comes up behind somebody, you're going to see the car putting battery energy back in. But it will combo that with the brakes. You can see it when the truck. If you watch that green bar, it'll come down a ways, and then the truck will continue to slow down. Like you can feel it having negative G's against your body. And so you know that then the manual brakes have taken over. Mm-hmm. But I got to tell you, it's so seamless. You can't tell hardly between regen and manual braking when it's even when I'm touching. If you reach up and just tap the brake pedal, when you have regenerative braking turned off the truck, it's still going to use regen through the brake pedal at first to a certain point, and then the actual manual discs take over. And so it's a very seamless. I will tell you, they got that right.
One thing I wanted to bring up, Chris, I don't know if you enabled this in your new truck, but the exit warning is new in the 2024s through 2025. So if you go to open your door and there's, let's say, a car coming or bicycle or something like that, it'll give you an exit warning and say, don't open your door because there's something coming. So you should check that out in the settings. I believe it's under driver's assistance. But it's called exit warning. You can toggle that on.
I'll have to
I
look
will
for
have
Yeah.
to get that.
It works
fine.
well. I actually, yeah, check it out. I actually used it for the first time. I turned it on because I found it in the settings and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it's right where the trailer side view is, where you turn that on. If you ever tow, Chris, do that too, because that's cool just to, have. I know you don't really tow, but
The next time I tow will be the first time
yeah,
I tow.
I know. So yeah, well, so if you do one day, tow a U-Haul or something, it's pretty cool. But it'll pop that view right up in the main infotainment of each blind spot with your mirrors. Only when you're towing, and only when you have a trailer connected. Obviously, Martin has been able to finagle with that a little bit, but for us normal folk. It's just that, but that's in the same settings. And I used the exit warning the other day, though. I dropped my parents off the airport. I went to go open my door and it do and said, exit warning right on the infotainment center or on the instrument cluster, and said, don't open your door. Just like a same thing as a cross traffic alert, except for it says exit warning. It's cool.
That's cool. Martin,
Yep.
This question is yours, buddy, because I recognize that there's nouns and adjectives and verbs in this sentence, but I can't tell you what an IMPA BC. Well, I know what BC 1.4
Okay,
is.
Zach. He's listening.
Did he do
for
this
those
on
who don't know,
purpose?
Zach and I are working on the gen set while charging. So yeah, I think there's a typo in that, but the Blue Cruise 0.4 firmware, but a truck without Blue. So he has basically the 311 with a module to the 24 firmware. When he tries the blinker, gives up the control because the firmware is not matching the hardware in the truck. And Zach, if you're really curious, you can talk to our buddy, which I won't call him out on air, but give him a message and say, hey, is this operating as normal when I don't have the hardware for? And I think he'll tell you yes, because when you have firmware, meaning software, that doesn't match your hardware, things get dicey. And not that it's bad, but it just like so I'm gonna try that. I have new 1.4 firmware in mind, but I have the cruise control module. I have all the hardware, so I'm very curious to know if it gives up control or if it operates like Jace, like you're saying. So,
Yeah,
Martin, you were getting a little bit.
yeah,
You're getting a
Yeah,
little
you're
bit
breaking
robotic.
up.
I don't know. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know if that
Oh,
was
God.
me or because I'm using Wi-Fi on my
no,
Mac.
it's
so I wasn't
probably
sure if
me.
that was-
I had to restart
Yeah,
my
you're-
router tonight before we were going, and the upload
Your
speed
picture's
sucks in
just
Kansas.
frozen.
I'm getting 150 down and like 0.5 up.
When we blow up, man, when we get huge, we're gonna get you a Starlink. We're gonna get you.
Oh, it's
We're
not
gonna get you
that. I have
some-
it now. I
You have
get
Starlink?
Starlink now. I just don't want to pay $130 a month.
Mhm.
Oh, is it 130 a month for Starlink?
Yeah, I pay $50 for T-Mobile. That's when I have it, and it's usually pretty good.
We
Dude, they
can
should
tell.
give.
No, I'm just
$50. You get what you pay for.
Oh,
So is this what it's going to be like? Comma versus Blue Cruise?
oh gosh. Oh man. Probably.
You know,
Gee,
Comma.
Willikers.
Probably.
just for perspective, Martin, on California technology, I just changed over to Sonic. I don't know if Sonic is nationwide for internet,
Mm-mm.
but it's a fiber optic network out here.
Mm.
10 gig for $50.
Oh my gosh.
And it's
we
so
have 1
fast
gig,
that-
and I thought that was great.
yeah, my
We're
my Wi-Fi
Yeah.
router can't handle it. Like
Yeah.
my Wi-Fi router can't transmit 10 gigs, so it's totally useless. Like I've got 10 gig going into a Wi-Fi router like yours, Jace, that can only do one. So it
Yeah.
totally doesn't matter. So the other day on X, I had to be like, okay, how does somebody explain to me? And thankfully that's the great thing about X, man. Somebody tagged somebody that has a YouTube channel about this stuff. And I literally watched a bunch of his videos, and I just bought a wireless router that will support the 10 gig. But
Because you need gigs. It's really important.
Oh, absolutely.
I need more.
The up is enough to do everything you're going to do. At 150 down, we can stream 4 TVs and Netflix and never have a problem. The upload speed kills you. It's this transmitting my and my backup why it's so laggy.
Your max headroom audio and your lagging video disagree, Martin.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need 10G, but somewhere between
Well,
T-Mobile.
seriously, I did a speed test before the show tonight, and I was at 150 down, which is phenomenal for us, and 0.5 up. Not 1, not 10, 0.5. So a half a minute up. It was like, I'm not going to be able to do this tonight. So anyway.
It's
So
like
back
every
to
other
our-
word. We get most of it, but it's like 70% of it is good.
Hey,
I was
let
just
me
making
switch to my phone.
Yeah, it might be a good idea.
Poor Martin, man. I don't know. Be careful though. I don't know what happens if you disconnect. It may disconnect all of us because you started
No.
the thing.
Oh yeah, oh,
It'll
God.
stay.
It'll stay as we cut
Wow.
out.
It's great. So, when you get back and once you're connected to your AOL, if you can translate IMBA and the CCM, so it
Control module.
sounds like he's got 1.4 Blue Cruise, but there's something else like another module that's not updated, so it doesn't let
Well,
it
he
do
just
the
doesn't
lane
have,
change.
because he
It's a
doesn't have
typo.
Blue Cruise.
Oh, he doesn't have Blue
He's
Cruise.
Yeah, it's an
Two.
XLT.
Oh, duh.
But XLTs
Yeah.
got that Blue Cruise 1.4 update. They got the OTA. And it literally said in there in the OTA, like, you will get this. Oh, if you will get this update basically if equipped with Blue Cruise. Like it's very clear, like if equipped with Blue Cruise. But people got it anyway.
I love that James clarified it's actually IPMA, and I love also that I still don't know what that means either. But that would be the typo I think that Martin was referring to.
Just has a typo, let us type very well.
Image processing module. There we go. Nice. We're all learning something today.
Are you guys still not hearing me? Is it still just as pixelated as it can be?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's on and off. So we're gonna start a GoFundMe so that Martin can get internet. Poor Martin, man.
I hear you guys.
I think it's the wind. The wind in Kansas is blowing so strong, it's messing up your T-Mobile antennas.
I guess.
Well, anyway, yeah. So that's basically an XLT though that got the Blue Cruise, or was he downloaded it or did the OTA, whatever it is. But no matter what, it's the same thing. And I did see though that XLTs did receive the OTA update for Blue Cruise 1.4, but obviously they don't have Blue Cruise. So, but it did mention in there that there were improvements to ACC as well as lane centering.
I'm just excited that I have any of it.
Yeah, you have it all now, Chris.
Yeah, you got it all. I mean, we're 1.2 technically, but or no, you're 1.4, right?
I'm 1.4. Are you not 1.4?
I'm 1.2.
So in 24 it was 1.2, and there still isn't an update for that. And then what's 1.3? Was that just skipped?
It for the Lightning, yes.
Okay.
For Mach-E, no.
And then Mach-E has 1.5 now?
Correct. And which was funny because you would have thought the F-150, but that shows you right there, which I think goes into why Tesla had issues with Cybertruck and all this stuff. It's a totally different vehicle, and a totally different wind. It all is, affected differently. So, the F-150 has traditionally lagged behind on, a version or two with the Mach-E compared to the Mach-E.
Yeah, and the Cybertruck is absolutely a different experience, and it kind of has that herky-jerky thing that the Lightning has in terms of its aggressive acceleration and braking, whereas the Model Y was much more elegant. And I think at some point what I'd like to do is I'd like to experience Blue Cruise in a gas vehicle, and I'm just curious, have you ever experienced it in a gas, and is it any different?
I have not in a gas F-150. I'm trying to think of any other vehicle. Not Blue Cruise. I was in a gas expedition that had Blue Cruise, but I didn't use Blue Cruise. Yeah, so no, I don't think so. Not a nice vehicle.
And then I'm curious if Mach-E, does Mach-E drive the exact same way? Does it have that same,
No,
even
Mach-E
lane
drives
change?
better in my opinion.
Does it? Okay.
A little bit. But it's again, it's less affected by the wind. I don't know. There were times though where I felt Lightning got a little bit better visuals of the line. So there were times where I felt like it was a little bit better in some cases, but in general, F-150 just, moves around in the lane a little bit more just with the wind, and there's just different kind of aerodynamics at play.
And do you find that even the lane change is a bit aggressive? Like when I look at the way the steering wheel turns on a lane change,
it
like
goes pretty quick.
It does. Like I would just be like, I'm just going to do this and it will cruise, it will slide into the lane. And the Lightning's like this. And I always worry that some poor person 2 lanes over is going to see the nose of my giant truck doing this aggressive turn and freak out.
It is pretty quick. Yeah. We noticed that. Justin actually said that the other day. He's like, man, it's a little aggressive sometimes on those lane changes. I'm like, it is aggressive, but I've never had it, mess up yet. And you'll even sometimes feel it like correct itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had one of those where like it almost goes a little bit too quick and it kind of is like, oh, I don't need to go that far. Or sometimes maybe it doesn't go quick, too far enough. And so it's like, oh, I got to go a little more. So you kind of feel that sometimes, but yeah.
Martin has dialed Martin has dialed in with CompuServe now. We're going to see how that is. Anybody old enough to know CompuServe? Google search that, kids. CompuServe.
No, I went back to AOL. It's working well.
Nice. Got your CD. That does sound better. That sounds better.
You've got
put in your free 5,000 hours of AOL CD.
Yeah. When I run out, I'll have to call them and up it. Give them my credit card number.
Dude, oh man, flashbacks of like the 90s when I would like download illegal music and I would download it in the morning before work, and when I got home it was finally done.
Napster and whatever they were.
I remember when we went to college, Cox Communication came out with like their fast internet. It's nothing like it is now, and you could get a whole song in like 3 minutes, and we just sit there all night, downloading music because it was the thing. It was hot.
These kids, man, don't know. We used to download music uphill both ways in the snow. They don't know.
How about when your Walkman skipped because you accidentally tapped it a little too hard?
Oh, but the CD
skipped. Yeah.
They had those anti-skip CDs that were really expensive.
Yep. Oh man. I'm that's why I love being in the generation that I am, because I kind of experienced life before cell phones and life kind of when they were, coming popular, and then life after, the cell phone craze. It's funny.
Zach streaming twice, getting our views up.
Blinker is doing nothing to cruise. Streaming twice on the entertainment.
Yeah, because he doesn't have the hardware.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you find, Martin. I think you're gonna find out. Well, I will see. We don't know about the divided highways.
Yeah, I will say I did it one time, and it did do something similar to what, like the first time I did it, it did do something similar to actually what Zach is reporting, where it just kind of gave up. So that was odd. And then I was like, was that a fluke? And then since I've done it probably like 5 or 6 other times, and like I said, Justin did it the other day too, and I was like, whoa, that works. Like out of Blue Cruise, you can lane change. I'm like, yeah, I had no idea.
I've never tried it because I didn't think it would work, but I have one a quarter mile from the house and then one right by my work 5 minutes from here. So I'm going to go try this after work. And
the only reason I found out about it working is because I went to tap the blinker, not thinking that it would do anything. And I just happened to be looking at the cluster and it said preparing lane change. And I'm like, I see I'm not in Blue Cruise, because you can tell, based on the colors and stuff.
Yeah. I have a few updates. What? Yeah, I have a few updates left to pull on mine. I don't have the animations to tell you preparing lane change on my truck like you guys have on yours.
Yeah. Yep. The animations are nice because it gives you a good, and like on the older trucks, it'll just say preparing lane change in letters. It doesn't really do anything. But then, the new trucks, it gives that whole, like basically what the Mach-E does, the same thing. It just basically shows you moving over in a lane.
Yeah. So more new news, what we promised we were talking about. So they killed charge assist, public charging, whatever
public charge,
they called it there at the end.
Which even that is weird. It's called something different in Jace's than it is in mine. It's the same app, but with different names.
It was it was updated to, I think yours is the latest, right? Yours is called, what is it?
Charges. I can't remember. One of them is public charging and one is
It was charge assist
I think
first,
public
and then it went to
charging was
public
the
charging.
new one. Yes,
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. Because it matches
charge
the name in the
assist-
app.
Okay. I
Charge
So what
assist,
we're-
then public charging.
Right.
The schizophrenic bipolar software that is Ford.
Yeah.
So then
Which is funny because it's just an app.
this
that
is
they
a
just can
different,
turn on and off.
what we're showing here, this is a different charging app, if you will, in the truck.
Yeah.
So this
Which
is
I
the
think
one where
another reason, and that's just real quick that you mentioned that, Martin. I think that's kind of another reason why it was being removed, because it was confusing there as well. Charging versus public charging. It even confused me tonight, in fact, when I went into the garage to open up public charging, or which is on my truck called Charge Assist. I opened charging and I was like, oh, yep, not that one. That's
Yes.
the one that. So
That's
I think
right.
this goes into it too. I think we're kind of learning on the fly.
So I think a little bit of this, this is what you would see if you have the updated. So like on Jason, first of all, Jason, does yours look like this on the charge settings? Do you have the advanced and the ability to, okay, so
Negative.
that's
That's
25.
25 and newer. Yeah.
25 and Martin's 23 because I back end loaded it. Again,
Because that's
these
how
are
he
things that
rolls.
you can do this stuff if you have the right tools and you're not scared about bricking your truck like I'm not. I don't worry about it. But you can certainly, there's a lot of negativity on the groups about what we're gatekeeping or what we're not sharing some of this information. A lot of it you can share. This is one that's not hard to activate. It was one line of code to activate this in my truck, but it doesn't work correctly because I don't have all the updates from FDRS. So under advanced, there's ability on my truck right now to slide the AC charging back and forth. So if you say you're not wanting to charge at 48 amps, like you can on a Tesla, if you want to back that off to say 20 or 30, you can do it. But on my truck, I don't have all the FDRS updates or over the air updates, if you will. And so when I slide it, it just defaults it back to zero. Like it's not functional yet, but it will be.
Yeah.
So when I get the updates, now that this is what it's going to change to, and I don't know how well this is going to show, but in the global preferences in this app, there's limits for AC and DC. And there's also this bottom one, you probably can't see it very well, but it says rate AC and DC, which is a new one. That's a big thing for a lot of people. And that, I think this is something that they put in here. Like, we're just going to throw this in here, but this thing is really, we're talking about a huge update for a lot of us. If you're sitting at a 350, we complain about the truck not charging fast enough. We hear that 98% of the time. But if you're on a road trip, it's noon, there's a Tesla charger in the parking lot or an EA or an EVgo in the parking lot, and that truck's going to charge in 37 minutes because you pulled in with 22% and you only want to go to 80. And you know you could let it go to 100. So that's normally what I think most of us do. But if you really want to just slow it down, because let's say in California, Chris, there are some EAs out there now that you can't go over 80. Is that right?
I mean, if it's working properly, an EA is typically like a 150 or a 350, and even the 150 will still give you like low one, like 105 or something.
No,
like that.
I'm talking about percentage they won't let you charge past.
Oh no, I haven't seen those. I know they exist, but I think that's mostly LA. I haven't come into that with Tesla or with EA in the Bay Area.
So where I was unpacking that conversation was, if you're pulling into one that's say 150 or a 350 and the Lightning does its thing, it charges like a monster, and it hits 80% and it turns you off and you're sitting in a restaurant, you have to get up and go out there or you're getting charged. So with this in the truck, before you get out, you can kind of calculate it in your head and say, okay, I want to be in here an hour, just turn the charge rate down. So instead of 150, just limit it to 110 in the truck and let it do its thing for a little while you're eating dinner. Maybe you're going to be in the dinner for an hour and a half. I know when we go like to the bigger cities to eat dinner, we're hour and a half, but by the time we wait on the restaurant to get in and then go in, we're not in a hurry, but I want to charge the truck during that time. Those are the times I can never DC fast charge at a restaurant or something, because it's going to get done way faster than I'm ready for it to. So this is a big thing that you could turn it down and let it charge. Now, the devil's advocate to that is you're sitting there going slow on a charger on purpose that people could be using. So there's going to be some flack. about this at some point. Some people are not going to like the fact that you're sitting there with a truck that could do 180 or 130 and you got it derated to 80.
Not that they would know.
We haven't seen just how low this will turn down, but I'm sure
Right.
the bottom is really slow, probably 20 kilowatts, because that's technically where DC fast charging starts.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is another new feature. I don't currently have this screen. I should in a couple of weeks once I get the FDRS updates pushed to the truck, because they're out there for they're for the 25s. There was one line of code in I think it was the IPMA it was one digit that I changed to be able to have this on the 23. So this is something that we can share, and something that am I gone again? You guys
You're
good on
Okay.
ours.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Joel, maybe it's you. Maybe it's that Arkansas internet now.
So anyway,
comment. I don't know. Yeah.
So anyway, that's if you go to the dealer and you get all the updates, which they're starting. I've heard some guys say they're starting to do. They're just updating it, which is rare, because before they wouldn't do any of that. They don't get paid for it. But once you get the updates and you can do this, I turned this on without updates. So I have the new screen now. It just looks a little different than this one.
So can you like talk to me like I was 12, which I mentally am sometimes. What is
go to your room?
We have food at home.
When is it going to be an FDRS update, and when is it a FORScan update? Like, is there some pattern to this is a thing that is in FDRS and it exists, but and if it exists in FDRS, does that mean it eventually should push as an OTA, or not necessarily?
Yeah. So look at it like this.
FORScan will never be an OTA, right?
Yeah, they can be. Okay. It's depending on what they push. So FDRS is going to update modules. So it's going to be entire firmware in your module, meaning the grass on your yard, if you want to talk to me like we're 12, the grass in my yard has to be planted, but you don't have the ability to turn on flowers. You don't have the ability to turn on pavers. You don't have, those. So there's little bits and pieces that FORScan is just going and looking at the Ford data, and you're changing. It's really hexadecimal, but they've made it easy to do. You change these little bits of code that just has the ability to turn on and off features that are already in the Ford software. When you update through FDRS, you say the IPMA, the image processing module. When you update that, all that stuff is there, but there's there's like switches that they've turned on or off. So these switches that are off, Ford has decided that you don't need those right now. And I'm not going to try to unpack that. But there's things that they haven't
could be here
on,
for a long time.
Right. So like, for instance, the matrix headlights. We know, Chris, we've talked about this, why they don't turn that on here. It's required other places. We don't need it here, but it's I love it. And so like
in Canada, right? And it's in Canada.
Yeah. That's right.
And they're activated on the Canadian trucks. It comes activated from the factory.
Yep.
Since
and you can activate it on any Lightning. They all have that ability. So you can go in and turn on those 4 or 5 codes and turn it on. And there's a bunch of things. We've had go back and watch some of the episodes. We did a whole FORScan episode. And for those listening, we're going to start doing a new, probably next week, maybe the week after, we're going to do a, FORScan tips with Martin. We're going to go over one in detail. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to create I don't want to say a PowerPoint, but so people can understand how to do one. What do you need? What do you need to do it? And how hard is it? It's fairly simple, but there are some things you got to know. And so we're going to start doing that probably at the end of the episodes on Tech Charged weekly. So everybody can at least go out and do one thing to their truck and make it better. Once you get used to running FORScan, it's really not hard to make changes. But it's like anything else. If you take what's in there out, you can't get it back. So you got to back up. You got to make a copy. You got to save things. So anyhow, that's those switches you're turning on and off. You turn the wrong switches on and off, you don't know where they were, right, Chris? You don't know where you left off.
So are these two systems independent of one another? Or
Yes.
If you were to do an FDRS update, could part of that FDRS update then include something new in FORScan that wasn't there before? Or
Yes.
these two things are completely, it could.
Yeah. So imagine having all these puzzle pieces. The FDRS is putting all the pieces in there, but certain puzzle pieces you can't see. when you do an update, it's like a new puzzle, but some of it's turned on, some of it's turned off. You go in and ForeScan is looking at those puzzle pieces and saying, okay, that one is off. I want to turn it on. This one's off. I want to turn it on. And I'm making this as simple as I can because it's really not that. It's not that easy, but it's not that hard either. Let's be clear. FDRS is the Ford Diagnostic and Repair System. It is the Ford system. When you go to the dealer, that's what they are using to update your truck. The dealers update that individual modules. So IPMA, SCCM, there's all these acronyms they use for the modules that are in your truck.
APIM, yeah, there's like
is a scanning software developed in Russia for Fords that allows it to look at the options that Ford has in all of the truck, and you can go in and change bits of code to turn things on or off that Ford's already put in there. So
now,
when
can they remove it?
Have, like
if
early on, we couldn't put the charge rate on the 23s on the screen because it hadn't been released for the 23s through FDRS yet. But the 24s were out and they had it. So as soon as Ford made that available as an update for the 23, then you could go in and turn it on, right? And it's a couple of updates. And I did that on mine. Now I have the charge rate screen on my 23 Lightning. And that is something, if people get their updates, they can use ForeScan and turn it on or off. And it's not now with
at
that
their
said,
own risk. Once again,
with that said, there are
we always say,
risks with using ForeScan on your truck. You can brick your truck, but it is, it comes with anything else. I mean, when you take your 25 Mustang and you buy a super chip from one of these companies and you put it in to make it go faster, you could blow the motor up. You could, but are you going to? Probably not. But there's risk there. So keep that in mind when you start playing with things in the software of your
and
truck.
Treat it as such, right? I think that's the goal. That's the message too, to treat it as something to take seriously, not just to treat it as like, oh, I'm just gonna go have some fun and use beta software on my truck. It's really not that. It's software that has been released for vehicles already, and ForeScan is and ForeScan is just
Zach was saying earlier, he chose to hit the blinker and it disables lane centering. I mean, that's something that is an effect of, it's untested in those hardware applications trying to work together, software hardware. Today, I went to get in my truck and I noticed that the capacitive touch it didn't work 3 times. I went to open the door and it wouldn't open the door. And I just immediately assumed one of the updates that I did with conjunction with one of the options that I turned on was one of those corner conditions where it disabled it. So I was using the keypad to get in today. But I know that, and I don't complain. You don't ever see me complain on the forums about stuff like that because it's stuff that I might have messed with. Well, I got home and it started working again. So I don't know what the hell that was. It was something Ford was doing today. Maybe the rain, maybe my hands. Anyway, but those are things that can happen. Weird stuff will happen. That's why even if some of us are in the early access program, they want feedback. If something goes screwy, if it's wrong, it's really people who are willing to take that risk, and that Ford will have your back on the early access program. If something goes wrong, they can help you fix it. But you're testing for them live, which is a good thing because there's no way from a manufacturer to test every corner condition as much as the customer can.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so that's
2 questions on the ForeScan part. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that as long as you back up before you touch anything, that even if you were to do something wacky and brick it, that you can just reinstall it from the backup and it would come back again? Or is
90%
that not
of the
necessarily?
time. If you brick the module where you can't get into it, then you have to be able to recommunicate and reload the whole firmware by force through a different button. It's a different button on ForeScan. And there are people out there who can help. So if anybody out there has a truck that they do that to and they can't back up and they can't load, there are image files. When I say image files, basically backups of similar trucks that we can hard load back onto your truck where you can basically unbrick the truck. But that is beyond what the normal user knows how to do. And you have to know people and know how to get a hold of people. So if anybody out there bricks their truck and you need help, message me. We can get you back going. but it is not going to be a simple process, and hold your breath.
And then just the way that they're enabling things that Ford has put in there is Ford then, let's say, they're like, oh man, all these people are putting in matrix headlights and somebody from the transportation department's getting upset at us. Can they go in and then remove that ability to do that if they wanted?
Ford doesn't
once it's
typically
in-
turn options off when they send an update out, because when they send up an update through FDRS or an over the air, they're typically only changing things that they needed to change. Could they? Yeah, if Ford decided all these people have matrix headlights, we don't like it, we're going to push an update to clear all those codes out. Absolutely, they could. And then we can go right back in and turn them right back on.
So they're in there. Like, they can't be removed from being turned on and off. Like, once they're there, they're
Never
there. They
say
couldn't
never.
go. Yeah.
Never
But
say
for the most
never.
part, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if
Because
you had
you're
like a
assuming
whole
all the
list.
risk. If you go in and change things, Ford can prove in court that they didn't ship it like that. You did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be cool to have just an entire list of these things, which ones are FDRS, which ones are Forescan.
Well, we have it.
And
The Lightning Owners Group has it. There's a Living It Up document, shows everything from F-150 to Ford Escape to all the Ford stuff that you can go in and change. And there's a Lightning specific one that shows all of those. Got to keep in mind, most guys aren't updating with FDRS. A lot of people are updating with Forescan. So when I say updating the firmware with FDRS is like doing the Ford dealer thing, taking it to Ford or getting it over the air. But then turning options on or off is what they do after the fact.
okay. Only a small percent. So I assume that there's probably only a small percentage of people that would ever feel comfortable doing this. I mean, in the
I mean, the grand
even
scheme
a
of things,
smaller.
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
Yeah, and then even a
probably
smaller
less than
percentage.
5% of people have Forescan and would be comfortable enough to do it. The rest of us, honestly, most people just don't give a shit. They get in their car, they drive it, it works how Ford shipped it, and they're fine.
Yeah,
I didn't give a shit until you started showing me cool stuff. Now I give a shit.
Well, I mean, there's some cool stuff that you can do, but it depends on if you're a geek like us and you want this stuff. That's why we created this podcast, to share things like this.
Many people don't even know what matrix lighting is.
Right.
Oh, I think it's so cool.
It's a cool, yeah. If you don't have it, I used to have to push the button on the floor to take my lights from dim to bright back in the day. And now we have automatic headlights in vehicles, which everybody takes for granted now. And then now we have these matrix headlights, which leaves it on bright. Oh, except for that little spot where the car's coming at you. Everything else stays on brights, which I love in my country because of the deer. You can see the ditches. It doesn't shove it down. So if there's a deer in the ditch, you got a couple of extra seconds to know I need to slow down. It's just I think it's a game changer. I don't know why it's not mandatory here.
Got to do
it.
I got to do it. Maybe this weekend when I'm bored. I'm not going to be bored, but when I maybe am, I got to try to do it this weekend. I'd love to kind of just
it'll take you 10
document it too, just to show people kind of like first timers using. I've been on Forescan. I've just never actually downloaded an update to my truck using Forescan, but I have the software, I have the computer, I have it all set up, but I just have not ever actually utilized it.
I need to do it too, Jay. So I've got a 23 XLT here, long range, and I'm going to fully update it before it ships. We've got a good buddy of all of ours that might be interested in it. And if that happens, I'm going to update it, and I should make some videos on FDRS with that truck when we're doing it. To be honest, it's pretty boring to watch, but it's interesting if you like the stuff. Yeah. And I think
the other thing that would
be
good for you to,
you know what I mean? Like when you're just doing a module, or you're doing turning options on and off with the basic Forescan stuff, it's seconds.
That's what in matrix lighting, you only have to change something, right? You don't have to download them.
Nope, no downloads. You change 5 or 6 options that are already there. When you start talking about FDRS updates, that sometimes can take hours.
Yeah,
because
I'm good on that. But
they're like 6 gig files. I mean, they're huge. So
and I would assume that the FDRS is even more rare than Forescan because you have to have a special cable and a subscription and all these other things that make that even.
I I only started using FDRS like a year and a half ago. And before that, I knew what it was, but it was scary. And I was on the Lightning Owners group here, and all these guys talk about it, and I didn't know what it was. I had a local mechanic here that I went to high school with that has it, and I've seen him use it a few times. So I was like, okay, what's this? FDRS is the 18 and up. Before that, Ford had the IDS system, which is for the older electrical cars. I think it started from like 2011 or up, maybe even earlier. And that's what they use to talk, but it's just different acronyms for different software that they use to load files or diagnose trouble codes on your vehicle.
I think it would be good for you to also when you get your kind of like a plan together, what you're going to share, and provide links to recommended software, because I know there's some things that you can do on a phone, or maybe you can only read things on a phone, but other things you need a laptop for, or just some kind of explaining that, like what people would need to do.
Yep.
What the limits of each are. Links would be great if those are available to things.
Yeah. So FORScan is free. The cable is like $25. You can do it with a Bluetooth cable, a Bluetooth adapter, but I recommend against that because it's not really good. But I like he says there, pretty much FORScan, you need a laptop, not a Surface,
okay,
not a tablet.
I was going to partition, but I just decided I was going to do the whole thing in partition, but I just went ahead and just bought a cheap PC. It's just almost
it doesn't
easier.
take any kind of PC.
With how cheap they are nowadays, it's like
a 10-year-old Windows 7 computer will work for FORScan.
Well, that's a good distinction, that it can't be like a Surface, or it can't be one of those types of things, because that's
exactly reiterate that point, that if you get stuck uploading and it errors in the middle, now you're in trouble. So use the cord. It's $25.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Maybe
these things.
$49. I don't remember. They're not expensive compared to the cable that you have to have for FDRS, which is a minimum of $600. Well, Jim.
Good call out by Jim here.
You don't need a battery tender for FORScan updates because it happens fast, and you really don't need it for all FDRS updates, but it's not just a battery tender charger. There's a lot to unpack with that statement, but basically I bought from Tractor Supply a 200 amp battery charger, and I run it between 20 and 40 amps when I'm doing it. You can actually overcharge your battery with one of those. So you actually have I'm not going to get into all the technical side. There's solution. The one I'm using is not the best. I get by with it because I know how to manage my voltages. But when I updated the other day to add the Tesla supercharger stops into my factory navigation, it was 5 hours of doing it. And I had the battery at 15.5 volts at one point, and it errored out, and I didn't know what to do. And my buddy who was helping said, "You're too high on voltage. You need to turn the battery charger off." So I did. 5 or 10 minutes later, it dropped back down, and it continued. So you can overcharge.
I didn't realize that.
Undercharging is normally what we hear of, though. Like when the OTAs are failing, that's an undercharge situation.
Yeah, man, I didn't even realize that it could physically overcharge a battery. I thought just
15.7 volts. I can confirm you can't install one of these updates. I've tried it.
And I really do firmly believe that there's a number of the things about OTAs that frustrate us with Ford. I do believe that a lot of those have to do with the battery, have to do with them knowing that if they tried to download an OTA of a certain size, that a significant, not a majority necessarily, but a significant number of problems would occur because of different battery health statuses and different charging and sitting around.
It's unfortunate that we can't make the DC to DC inverter turn on, stay on, and keep up enough to keep that battery voltage where it's at. But when you're updating things, pieces of that system have to shut off. And I think a lot of them, the DC to DC converter has to shut off. But that's the problem. That's why you have to have an external source. Even taking it to the Ford dealer, they have to put it on an external source to keep that 12 volt.
My truck was bricked by the dealer doing the IPMA. Was it the image
front camera
control
sensor
module update? Yeah, the front sensor update. They used. I even told them, make sure you use at least like an 100 amp tender on there, or else it'll die. And they said, "Oh, yep. It says it right in here. We'll make sure we do it." They used, I don't know what it was, some tiny one, and it died during the update, and it bricked, and it was a whole thing. They had to call Ford hotline. And
if you're wondering, if you don't have a good one, he noticed he put there a 40 amp charger, and 40 amps good. A good way to have a balance between the two, and I learned this when I was up at Paul Erickson's in Iowa at TESX. He would take a big lead acid 12-volt battery and set that in the frunk, hook the battery charger to that, and then a set of jumper cables from that battery over to the car battery, the one the Lightning or the Tesla, whatever you're updating. That way you've got like a buffer. It's extra amperage, but it's not overcharging everything. You don't have to sit there and cook it at 40 amp the whole time.
Yeah, that's cool.
And is this every EV? You mentioned Tesla. Does Tesla work the same way? Does every EV tend to do this, or are there?
Well, so Tesla, when you're not Tesla's over the air, they don't have problems with the battery dying. Now their batteries die, but not because of that. But when you're reloading software, let's say you have an old Model S Tesla 85 and you have a 100 kilowatt pack put in the car. There's a button in there, firmware software. When you hit that button, it goes out to reach out to Tesla and it has to do this update. During that update, if your voltage drops below 13 volts, it's going to stop. It's not going to work. And they don't brick very often, but it can happen. So on Paul's advice, and now my advice, you still want to have a maintainer or something on that battery to help it, because they're tiny little batteries on all these EVs. That's the biggest problem, is because we don't have the cold cranking apps that's needed, like to start a car. They put small batteries in them, but I wish they hadn't. Honestly, I wish we'd have put the same battery in we've had forever, just so we got this, the depth.
I think it's short-sighted for them. I think I understand why they would be like, oh, we don't need a big battery. I think, and I'm curious in the future if they can figure out how to do the DC to DC better, or how that will work. But I noticed that with my sister's BMW, they do it differently, where it only downloads when you're driving. So it does all the downloads as you're driving the vehicle. It obviously won't install it till later, and then like in the middle of the night it'll install it. But all of the downloading is happening while you're in the vehicle with it running, so that the battery is staying.
The download's the easy part. It's the install that's the drain, because you got systems shut off and the 12 volts taking up all the.
Yeah, Doug just talked about that exact subject in that interview, that rare interview that he did with Doug Field, that he did with The Verge the other day. And that was a direct topic of conversation, is, Ford is figuring out when to download an update, when to install an update, when not, more importantly, to download an update, when not
and
to
then
install an update.
And to back up Doug's comment, and then you've got the manufacturing team who didn't calibrate the BMS for the 12-volt battery right, so they think it's ready for an update, and really it's reporting the wrong value. And we had a lot of people having updates not installed correctly because the BMS on the 12-volt battery, that little one that they replaced for a lot of us, was wrong. And so it's telling you got 80% and you really got 60, and it just couldn't do it.
Yep.
So Martin, is there any advantage if you want to try to avoid that when it's installing? What if it's plugged into your AC charger at home, charging the battery? Is that helpful at all, or that makes no difference either? It'll
shut the charging down.
Yeah, it shuts it down. I do not plug my truck in when it's doing it over the air. I always connect a battery charger to my truck when I'm doing either an over the air, if I know it's a big one coming because I've seen people have problems, or if I'm doing with FDRS.
Yeah, I don't do the tender anymore myself for OTAs, but I mean it wouldn't be a bad thing to do, but it's
so good now, Jay, so you don't really have to worry about that too much with OTAs.
Yeah, now you're good, and they lowered the limit. I think it's like EAP said something to me at one point, like 65% or more. It used to be 80% or more, so they used to have a lot higher. Now they're way down at 65.
I've seen 80 after a long road trip, driving. So 80s, it's easy to get to 80 on a 12-volt battery.
Yeah. But as far as charging, there's a couple reasons why I would say I agree with you, Martin. One is it's just an extra complication. Number one, to be AC charging while it's OTA updating. It's another thing that the truck has to do because it has to turn it off and then turn it back on. And you'll see what I mean by that. The second thing I say, though, is Ford has specifically had issues, specifically 10.3.0, where if you were charging during that update, you had to basically all your charge settings would have been deleted. Your charge locations were deleted out. So you had to go back in and delete. If you were charging, you had to go in, delete the FordPass app, re-download it. If you weren't charging, you basically could, proceed as normal. So there was like, there's multiple reasons why I would just probably not charge during it, but that would probably be one of the big ones. My opinion, I would just drive. Like if I was worried and let's say I didn't have a battery tender and I was worried and I had a big OTA coming, I would just, and especially if it was like a big inhibit update where you can say, update now, I would go drive for a half hour, try to bring, or even just keep it started in the driveway works too if you go for a long enough time. And it will bring that 12 volt up eventually. But like I said,
DC to DC does a good job. The inverter on the truck's way better than an alternator on the truck, in my opinion. The DC to DC does a great job bringing it back. It's just such a small battery. So Jim's question here.
But I think it has gotten better. It's gotten better than it was. It used to be like I would have updates fail left and right, especially being an EAP. And
lots
now,
of guys.
Yeah. And now I don't see any, like we've gotten 5 or 6 updates on our new 24s in 2 months. And every single one of them has been flawless.
Yeah.
I even had one the other day that went to not completed. I've never had this happen. I had an update that went to not completed, an OTA. And usually when it goes to not completed, it's not going to try again until next time you're up in the slot. And it tried again instantly. I've never seen it happen, but it just went from not completed to, and it was because I didn't realize I was getting an update. I turned the truck off right in like the middle as it was updating sync, and it freaked out for a second. But I've never had it go from not completed to retrying again instantly, and that's what it did. And I was like, wow, that was awesome. So it's much smoother.
That happens with FDRS. If one doesn't try, you can just try it again, and sometimes it'll go, sometimes it won't. It's usually about battery state of charge is why they don't. It'll tell you even on FDRS, you're only at 30% state of health or state of charge. You need to be above 50 to do this. Are you sure you want to continue? And you can push through it, and it usually will fail. Yeah. So I usually just sit there and let it be on the charger for a half an hour before I try one of those to let it get the battery back up,
But for those out there, and I agree with the comment, AC charging, FDRS, OTAs, probably just another thing complication to add on. However, Ford recommends you can AC charge while you OTA. So it's not,
they do.
It's
I
not.
Don't. But they do.
I don't either. But but that you can too. So I don't want to tell people don't do it. You're going to mess something up.
No, the chances are a lot of guys have it checked for those at 1 a.m. It seems like that's the default is checking for 1 a.m. and it may install if it's not an OTA. If you got automatic updates on and installations, you can click. And if it's charging, it normally is fine. I've only seen a couple that was a big problem. I just choose not to. If I know there's one coming, I won't plug it in.
In which word to the wise? Ford updates never come in at 1 a.m. So ever. We get the updates as early as anybody can get them. And I will tell you, no update has ever come later than 6 p.m.
I'm going to have to find my new between 11 and 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I used to always get mine 24 hours after Jace. So Jace used to be my gauge. When I would see Jace, I'd be like, oh, this is great. I'd make sure I drove my truck around, and 24 hours later, here would come my update. Now I'm going to have to figure out my new update cadence. I have not gotten
it. You'll have to find someone maybe. I don't, maybe.
25, Mr. 25. You don't need it yet.
It took a while for us. So we took 2 weeks and then we started getting, let's get to Jim's question.
Jim's question here. OTA inhibit reset. That goes in and basically resets that module. You can do the same thing by just resetting a module. The module that the OTAs come through on, they don't call it that. They call it a gateway. And there's a few modules you can just go in and manually it's like a hard reboot. You can just reboot those. I do that as a matter of practice whenever I install, and like we talked earlier about the module. If I'm going in and turn some options on and off, I'll turn them on and off, activate them, and then I go and I do a reboot of that module. It's like when you update your computer, it's best to update your computer and then restart it. I do that every time I get one now. But most of the ForScan instruction videos that you see out there don't necessarily say that. It's not just coming from my experience. This is coming from a guy who I know that really knows. It's where I'm getting all this back end loaded stuff from. And he's like, restart those. It's not a bad thing to restart those. So
Yep.
that's the inhibit reset. So yes, it can be done through FDRS. Doesn't have to be. You can do it using FORScan. There, in most of your good handheld scanners, the bidirectional scanners have that reset capability in them as well. Like my launch for other vehicles, well, for Ford too, it has it as well.
We're losing you a little bit again, Martin, but you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Pretty much got all of it.
Sorry, guys. I'm gonna work on that.
That's okay.
90%. No, you're good, man.
It's all such great information, man, and this is stuff that I know there's a lot of people with questions and curiosity about it. That's why I think having these segments, they'll start to build on each other. Talking about the basics, talking about the tools, and then starting with something simple, and then just kind of each week having that kind of in the, maybe that's how we close each show, because then that'll.
If anybody's listening and you want one-on-one, message me on Facebook. I use Facebook exclusively. I'm on X, but you'll never see me posting. I just don't use it much. I need to. But in Facebook, if you're on there, message me and I will get back with you. I love.
And he really will. He means it. Like if you accidentally break your truck because you hit the on-off button, for instance, too many times too quickly, it could happen in your driveway.
It's happened to me, and it's happened to Jason. It's happened to all of us.
You might be calling Martin saying, "Oh God, what do I do? I just screwed myself."
I think each of us.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah. The TPMS sensors, and you put a new set of wheels on your truck, and you bought a new set of TPMS sensors, and you want to relearn those. There's a process, and I'll try to make this simple. You hit the brake pedal and let off. You turn the truck on or off 3 times. You hit the brake pedal again, turn it on and off 3 times again, and it pops up on the screen, train TPMS sensors, and says train left front wheel. But if you're clicking that button on the dash too fast, the contactors in the truck freak out and it stops safely. Now you get all the Christmas tree lights that Chris are familiar with, and you think the truck is done. and it is scary. I did it and I thought, what the hell? So I grabbed my scanner, I reset the codes, I 12 detected and everything. Push fast and it freaks out. You need a cover set and a 10mm wrench and you're good.
Yep. The 10mm. 10mm is everyking.
No, it really does work.
On the backside of the charge, on the backside of the front door of the battery, they should have put a 10mm right there.
Well, Easter
on a little related note to that whole TPMS thing that some people may not know, and it's good to just kind of know because there wasn't really a lot of information out there, which was kind of odd to me. But between 2022 Lightnings through 2023 Lightnings used, is it 315, Martin?
315 megahertz.
315 megahertz for TPMS sensors to communicate with the truck. In 2024,
not all of those are interchangeable. You can't buy any old Amazon 315. They have to kind of be for Ford, even though 315 is common across a lot of makers. It's still a difference. Yeah. So be a little cautious there. But in general, 15 megahertz.
Yep, and then 2024, however, they switched to 400 and is it 22, right? Megahertz.
430.
Or 4 yeah, okay. So 433 is that what you said?
Yep.
You're breaking up. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's good to know because I had an instance where I had wheels from a yes. Okay. So I had wheels from a 2022 that had the old TPMS, and I could not figure out for the life of me why they would not connect to the truck. And I then did some research to find out that if you buy wheels from a 2022 and you tried to put it on 2024, you need to swap out the TPMS sensors to the new megahertz. So
and most of the manufacturers now make a dual megahertz. You can buy one that does both, and then it's kind of universal.
Yeah. I don't think these ones did both. The older ones that I had, for some reason I don't think they could update those, so they had to use a new one. But yeah, and the one I bought actually could do dual as well. The ones that I replaced them with. Yeah. But yeah, it's something, a little quirk, good to know that if you happen to upgrade, there's a lot of people that upgrade from their 22 Lightnings. We've got
Or
2
they'll
of them
have
on
winter
this show.
wheels, summer
Yeah,
wheels. They'll put
exactly.
different
So
things on. If you're looking
good
for
to
a
know, though.
recommendation, I recommend either the Ford ones, which are expensive, or Autel. Autel is a really good brand of aftermarket that's they're half the price, but they're really good.
I ended up going with, I bought Autel ones. I ended up returning them only because the shop themselves was a little bit nervous about getting to the Connect, and they just were like, we'll basically just charge you less if you just buy them through us. And
it's funny.
okay.
If you have a Lightning, and most of our guys listening have Lightnings, and you want to reset your TPMS, you can do it by airing the tires down, which is kind of a pain. Once you get it into that train mode, and if you need to know that, just message me or Google it. It comes right up. You can let the tire pressure down, and that'll detect that sensor. Or for $20, you can buy this little tiny gray, box on Amazon. I should have it one up on the screen here. And you just walk around and push the button, and it programs them right up. And I use that all the time.
That's what the tire shops
you can buy
use.
a $300. Yeah, you can buy like a $300 Autel scan tool that tells you all the fancy stuff. But on a Ford, it works from 92 to 2025.
Yep.
So with the sensors, if you wanted to take, and like in my case, at some point, not now because I just spent all my money, but at some point, I do really want to change the wheels. I'm not a 22-inch wheel guy.
Dude, I really wish we had talked about this, because I have a new set of Lariat wheels on this XLT in the garage, and I would have swapped you for those. Why would we
bring them? bring them, and you can take the Platinums back with you. I don't know, like
if I had my tire machine, it's going to cost us some money to get the tire swapped. That's why I was suggesting. You were here for like a half a minute. It was crazy. 4 a.m. to like noon, and you had to get back to California.
Yeah, I wasn't even there long enough to fully charge the Lightning again. I had to go to a DC charger to finish it off. I had to do it before I got there. Is what I did. I went to one closer to you, so it wouldn't be as much to charge.
Same thing though.
But yeah, it's so if I'm swapping wheels, let's say I go buy new wheels, and you got to go buy new tires. Will they take the sensors from my existing wheels, or no? You need to buy all new sensors.
No, and they kind of up to you, to be honest. Yeah, they would bolt on, but it's really up to you. You could do it either way. I've done it a million times, and they'll ask you sometimes, do you want to? Like, what's your plans with the other wheels? If you want to sell them, it might just be easier for you to sell them with TPMS included. That way, the buyer, you can charge a little bit more. Some people keep the center cap. Some people, it really just depends on what you decide to do.
Yeah, Chris, for your specifically set of Lariat wheels, and you're going to get rid of platinum wheels, I would pull the sensors out of the platinum wheels, put in the Lariat wheels, and put them back in your truck. That's what I would do, because whoever has them next, same thing you're doing to it. I mean, or they go buy a set. You can buy them on Amazon for $50.
Yeah, or that whatever tire shop they go to could sell them to them. So there's lots of options. It's really up to you. If you really want it to be easier to sell the platinum wheels, you could keep the TPMS on it, but I probably wouldn't. Like Martin said, I'd probably swap them and let the next person just handle it.
If we would have swapped XLT Lariat wheels, I have the Lariat wheels. For yours, we would have swapped sensors because they're not the same megahertz. It's a 23 to a 25.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll probably end up, what I probably want to do first is I'd like to find wheels. It's an all black truck, and I love the little lightning blue. And I tried on my old truck, I tried to put these Tesla rim protectors, these, they make them for Teslas because every Tesla gets curb rash, just the way they're designed. And I went down to my paint guy, and he color matched and painted them the lightning blue. And they, I think I'd want to find rims that were probably already had some hints of blue in them, because I like that it's all black, but I'd love to have some 20-inch rims. I'm even curious, so the 20-inch gets better efficiency, and I believe has a better ride than the 22s because it's got
More
more
sidewall.
sidewall, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep.
is it even more if you were to go down to an 18-inch wheel? Would that even get more
It
efficiency?
depends on
or-
rotating mass. So the weight of the wheel and the aerodynamic makes a little bit, but that rotating mass makes a difference, and even the tire weight will make a difference. So I have a whole. I didn't release it. I did a video on the 18-inch wheels with the Michelin Premises versus the 20-inch factory Lariat with Hancooks, and there was a 10% difference in efficiency between those two wheels. The truck.
That's crazy.
And yeah,
In
and
which
to be honest, what
direction?
I've noticed though is that Ford doesn't like. I put the 20-inch wheels, Lariat wheels, on my Platinum. It doesn't really. It doesn't. The truck doesn't really calculate more range. Does that make sense? Like when I go when we plugged in our extended range Lariat, it would charge to 326. The Platinum's still only charging to like 297 because even though I swapped those wheels, there's still a Ford algorithm in there that's telling it only gets 300 miles at 100%.
Correct.
But it will get more and it will do more, right? Like when
Correct.
it'll update itself on a trip, or are you not finding that to be true?
Yes, but am I finding that to be true? Not really. No.
You
But
have to know.
Yes.
Jace, you didn't go that direction. You went from 20-inch to the Duratrax. I mean, you put a more aggressive tire on that's not as efficient.
Correct. But I still haven't. I've had
If
other
you was to
people
go
who have
buy a
gone
set
way
of-
more efficient, and their trucks still just don't report at 100% like a
That's
Lariat
correct.
extended range would.
Right. So what actually happens, and with the trucks reporting, that's why I always tell people don't pay attention to the GOM. People put this 353 mile range Lariat on there. That's a guess of what that truck thinks you're going to do driving habits, but the efficiency is the Bible. If you put on a set of 18-inch Michelin Premises in place of a 22-inch Platinum wheel, you're going to go from getting 1.9 to 2.3 on the same road because there's such a difference in mass. But the truck's
Just
still
don't
going to report
expect
out.
Exactly. Just don't expect
gonna
to see
report out.
that.
Yeah. Who cares? Just look
On
at
a- on
the
the gas.
efficiency times the battery percent and times the.
Yeah.
I've said that the bio calculation, I still use it. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about Google and how it does. If Google, it doesn't take account for wind. It doesn't take account for trailers. So if I'm in a headwind, I'm getting 1.5. It still thinks I'm going to get there with 23%, and you'll see it dropping as you get closer. But it could run you out. So I have to watch Google even then. The only one that really, truly does a great job is the factory GOM. I hate to say it. The factory navigation will not
it takes in account all
align
that stuff.
with what Google EV routing, even though they're supposed to be integrated, and a better Route Planner Pro when it's actually looking at the battery percent and adjusting live.
So yeah, just don't expect you go to throw those tires on there though, Chris, and like all of a sudden your GOM's going to go up to like 320, like a Lariat extended range. You're going to see less, but it's the difference of when you're driving that you'll notice the difference of that efficiency. Like for example, I actually think that I noticed that Apple Maps is a little bit more accurate because my truck is a little less efficient than
There
that
you
Lariat
go.
extended range was. So instead of like 10%, I'm only beating it by like 5 to 7%. I've noticed that like every time. So it's interesting.
Because it
I-
does know
so-
the
so-
difference in the two trucks. A Lariat or Platinum CarPlay don't care.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna hate CarPlay a little bit less now because my truck is less
You'll be a little more
efficient.
accurate.
So it'll be a little bit more
That's
accurate.
correct.
Yeah, I'm all about I've never been like small sidewall, big wheel guy. I'd be
No.
super cool with like just some kind of little subtle color in the in the wheel, and then thicker. I want the softer. I'm a quiet ride, softer. I'm a middle-aged man, dude. I'm like I
I hear
want,
you, buddy.
you know what I mean?
We-
Like I don't need. I want more
So
range,
you guys saw
more quiet.
You guys saw
more
my
soft.
post today asking advice on what to drive to California. We've got 3 options. Actually, I didn't put the 4th option on there, which is the Mach-E. I should have. But one of them right now, that Tesla has 21-inch turbine wheels on it. And it rides like crap. The efficiency's crap. If I do this, it's getting the 19s back on it because there's just so much quieter and so much more efficient. Doesn't look as good, but I used to
That's
be
a
looking
long.
to win second, but
That's a
not that
long
way
drive to be
anymore.
uncomfortable.
Yes. And the efficiency, it's not worth it. Now, based on that logic, I should put the 18-inch wheel Michelin for the lightning on it and make the trip, but I can't handle the way that looks. It looks horrible.
You got to get pictures of that. I want to see what the 18 looks like. I don't know.
I have some pictures. I'll have to share again.
I love the Lariat 20-inch wheels. I just think they're just
I do
perfect.
too.
I
do too.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best design elements they've made.
I like them
think
black.
It looks cool.
I painted mine, and mine are actually a really, really dark metallic, but I like them black. I think it looks good. But I was about this the other day. You know, you don't see like a Boyd Coddington billet wheel anymore. That's just kind of, there's a few trucks that's done. And if I do a Cybertruck, I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to put a polished aluminum 1996 billet Boyd wheel on it. I want to see it. Nobody's doing it. They're doing gold or all these eclectic new style, which is fine. It kind of matches this. But I think going old school on a brand new Cybertruck would be something. And I'm not a big Cybertruck fan, but eventually I'm going to build one. If you guys haven't checked out, and I think we're right at the end of time here, if you haven't checked out Zach's Jerry Rig Everything channel on how they repaired his Cybertruck, you need to go check that out.
I need to watch that video. I haven't watched it yet. I've been meaning to watch it.
It's really good.
That thing, the Giga casting is in 3 pieces. There's a middle, a front, and a back, and they glue it together. It is pretty awesome to watch.
Super awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that now. Now I feel comfortable building the Cybertruck video, to be honest. Now I know I can buy the section. The problem will be how much are those sections. If the front and rears and it's $2,500, I gotta bid accordingly. So
yeah, and I'll just I'd love Ford to take a lesson from that. I mean, what I loved most about that video was that Zach pretty much bashed Tesla. I mean, pretty upfront, and did a whole bunch of stuff to that truck and said a whole lot of things that were questionable, were kind of sort of true-ish, but I think certainly exaggerated for entertainment purposes. It wasn't whistling diesel bad, but it was you know, it was whistling diesel adjacent, let's call it. And Tesla, instead of getting butthurt by it, like, you know, Wes, their engineer, responded with like some engineering facts, which I always appreciate. And then when he went to get his truck fixed, they invite him in to video it being fixed, show him how it's being done, let him make money off of it, and then
that gave me a lot of confidence in Tesla when I watched that video.
Yeah, I love that kind of transparency. I think when you're transparent and honest about where your limits are and where your engineering, you know, bona fides are, and you show both sides of that, and you're open about it, and you talk about your aspirations, you know, that's why I don't get mad at them when they're talking about what they want it to be. We started kind of this day talking about hardware 3 versus hardware 4. Hell, maybe you don't replace hardware 3 with 4 because you know you got hardware 5 coming around the corner, and that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, that's the thing. They're always iterative. And
well, I think the good news, the younger people at Tesla, I think get it. They seem to get it. But I think that's what they get, is that this is Tesla's form of advertising. They don't have any other. So this is their advertising. They have to have something that shows the public that there's still a company there and people there behind or beyond, I should say, you know who, you know, that there's a big, bright, bushy-tailed company still there somewhere deep within. So I think the younger folk get that. I hope that they're around long enough that you know who doesn't get really mad and again and lets them all go. Because I think there is a lot of bright talent at Tesla, just like there is at any of these OEMs, right? But I think particularly Tesla for sure, there's a lot of young, bright talent that has really taken the brunt of an unfortunate, you know, situation.
Yeah, I would just love to see Ford just do a little bit more of that, being very transparent about what, you know, what the current model can and can't do, what software can and can't be updated, why there's limits to that, we were talking on this on Twitter the other day. It was like almost like Ford has chosen, instead of to go that route, which they did for a little bit, but they kind of got burned a few times. They did early on. They did get burned. They did get burned a few times. I think they learned some lessons there. Unfortunately, maybe too like harsh of a reaction, I think. But they decided, it's almost like they had a meeting and said, let's put it all together. And instead of going that route, we're going to go the customer route.
and we're going to focus all of our energy and all of our time and monies on the customer portion of it, as in the building of the clubs, building of the cars and coffees, the community around EVs. They've done, in my opinion, probably the best out of all of the manufacturers, Tesla included, and Rivian, which is saying something, of creating a community. They've done an excellent job. But the transparency when it comes to the technology and the updates and the hardware updates for the vehicles, that has definitely fallen.
They have this mentality, and they've said this: we don't talk about future programs. That's like a that they say, and I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think the transparency through that would keep people wanting to come back to Ford, waiting for that next thing. Like if I knew in 2 years that there was going to be a hybrid Super Duty, I would hold on to my truck a little longer, but then buy that Super Duty because I know I want it. And we have no idea even when we're going to get an update, let alone.
Yeah, I think the problem was the fluidity and the pivots, like we've talked about, right? And I think T3 has changed 5 times, where I don't think
been out by
any
now,
other product in the history of Ford has ever been quite like that. Like where we were transforming into a new, powertrain, a new whole thing. And then now we're not doing it.
I thought early T3 was the next gen Lightning, and knows I've been guessing that it's a new or size truck, not. Could be wrong. Nobody really knows outside of people who know, what that.
And I've heard that it's changed multiple times. Yeah.
Right, they probably have changed it. So that's even Ram Charger on June 8th. Or July, I think it's June 8th. They have a huge. I'm going to watch that because they're going to talk about the Ram Charger, and I'm really interested. I'm not a Stellantis fan. I want to be, but damn it, they keep messing up the Charger. They just messed up, but I really think that the Ram Charger is going to be a game changer. Number one, because it's first. The Lightning was kind of first. This is the first true series hybrid truck that can tow and go long distances, and I'm probably going to have one, and I don't want to say that because I'm a Ford nut. So if they keep saying, hey, we got one coming, wait a year, I'd wait a year.
They got to release it. That's the thing. They keep delaying it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be very
wait and see if they release it.
Well,
Chris is going to be in a for a couple years. I think, Jace, you're exactly 34 months left?
39. Yeah, 30. Yeah, I think 34 months, 36 months. We were at 39.
Months.
So yeah, 36 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the math on it. I said we're in 25, and if I take 3 more years, now we're into 28. I figure it's going to be 27, 28 before the next new hotness comes out. I'm probably not going to want the first ones off the lot, although I may change my mind when I see it. But if it's not a full size,
I don't care.
No, you won't. It's going to have problems. They always do. My grandpa used to tell me, don't ever buy the first year or something.
If it's not a full size, though, I wouldn't. Like if it's a smaller truck, I would have no. I want to say no interest. I would be interested because it's a truck and it's a Ford. I would want to see it. It's the new great thing, but I wouldn't want to own that. That would not be my daily driver. I wouldn't downsize my vehicle.
Like Jace, would you even consider going back to a Mach-E after having how you work with yours?
No, I would never. No, especially because there's no vehicle to load or home or grid or anything. Vehicle to vehicle, nothing.
Right, nothing. We have one because she does, but we were at Walmart last night loading groceries in the front of the Lightning, and she said, I miss this. And I'm like, well, we'll build you another one. So
I went to the garden center 3 times last week, and I can put whatever I want in my truck. I don't have to wait for Justin to come home, or I can do whatever I want to do. I throw a toilet in Home Depot. I've done that before too. I mean, it's just
there you go.
That I can do everything is huge, and it is the big truck. Do I wish that sometimes I do wish maybe we could have like a big truck and then like a 2/3 row SUV or something like that. We could probably get away with something like that, but I don't think I'd go back down to a Mach-E size vehicle. It'd be too tough.
Kurt, man.
Kurt hit me in there. You nailed there, Chris. You're really going to do this again first year? Wait a year and then get the deals. Because, not only did you pay way too much for that truck, it had all kinds of problems.
It worked out.
It did. It did. You got it for free after you drove it for 20,000 miles.
Yeah. 31.
It did work out.
I made it to 30.
speaking volumes for Ford taking care of people, and they not always, but they typically do.
Yeah, no, they went well above and beyond for me, and
Yep.
and it goes to the really credit to them, for not only what they did but what they built in terms of the relationship and the community and in terms of the product. Because at the end of the day, like, I was not obligated to stay. I mean, I obviously, I
Right.
tried. I had the Cybertruck for 3 days. I did go and look at some of the other competition and all the way into including like Model Y and looking at leases and other different things and thought about how I would use it. And it's all the stuff that Jay says. Like, dude, what else? We talked earlier about the noise, vibration, and harshness characteristics. We talked about
Yeah.
the power, the size, the frunk, the space, the utility,
There's
the way that we
only-
use it.
There's only one truck that's competition for me, and there's one that I have a hard time not looking at it every day. The
Sierra.
EV Denali.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
Sierra EV.
For me,
That Denali is nice. But I
It
don't.
is nice.
it's just
I didn't
different.
love it when I sat in it, though. I'll be honest. And there's one reason I didn't love it.
a lot more. I loved it a lot more. I like the vertical screen. I would buy one of those. If it was right.
The only reason I didn't like it is it felt much tighter than the Lightning feels. The Lightning is very open. The seats are flat. You've
with
got
the
much
price,
more
right?
space to
feels
room out.
tighter,
And the
but it's a
Sierra
bigger
is
truck.
like,
Yeah.
It's
But it's GM.
weird.
I mean, that's typical GM. I didn't.
yeah,
love
and
it,
it's
but
it's
I
not
would-
very nice. I just
If it had-
sat in it and I was like, I looked around and I was like,
But there's
it's
one thing.
bigger in here, but it's smaller.
The one thing it's got, the one thing is that huge battery and the big charge curve to go with the battery. So if it had a 130 kilowatt battery, wouldn't even be looking at it.
Yeah, but I like the interior compared to the Silverado quite a bit. I mean, it's very, very nice. That was just my one big complaint was I just felt like it's really about the doors in the center console and how they come towards you instead of just staying straight out and just allowing you to kind of spread your legs a little bit. It just kind of comes to a point a little bit more, and your legs are kind of squeezed. Like I feel like I'm in my old race car.
Like a Mach-E or a Tesla a little bit. Yep.
Yeah. For a big
I-
truck, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I didn't think it was possible to love the Lightning more, and then this one with it's weird, the stuff that you don't think you need until you have it, and then you're like, yeah, that's nice. Like having
like not having a gas engine.
I mean, once you assuming you can plug in at home, it's just such a no-brainer,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
But the stuff I've now done a couple days with the phone is key, and it's just cool. And I know this is like 2012 Tesla stuff or whatever, right? But again,
but I still have a fob for these 15s.
yeah. But it's nice to have the phone as key. It's nice to have the sunroof. My kids love the sunroof, and my kids loving it means that I love it. And my wife loves the massaging seats. The fact that she loves them means that I love them. The fact that the sunroof isn't just a glass ceiling, but it literally opens. Does anybody else open other than the very oldest Teslas? And then it has that cover.
The shade is something that if I bought a Silverado EV Denali, I'd have to buy one of those snap in because it gets hot. I don't like the heat on a long trip. We keep it closed.
And the Tesla Model Y, there's a bunch of Tesla Model Ys where people put in, they install those shades. Yeah.
I have one for the Mach-E that it's about time to put it in because there's no way to. You're right.
Yep.
There's just so much they got right from day one on those trucks that still hold up today. And
lots of iterations on F-150.
We talked about that last week. If you're listening and you didn't catch last week's episode and you want to kill 2 more hours, go listen to what was about EV adoption and why people are switching back to the Lightning. And Chris's comment goes right along with that, and that's exactly right. It just does so many things so well. I would say if they had come out with about 160 to 180 kilowatt battery and 800 volt charging, there would have been nothing ever. Not to today's, not the Chevy, nothing. It's because it's just a. Now there's arguments that 90% of us don't need a 180 kilowatt battery because we're not towing, we're not trying to do these things with it. So really, probably what they came out with is perfect. Chris, you don't need more than what you've got right now.
And for the company financially, I think it makes more sense to keep
Correct.
the batteries smaller. But yeah, long term,
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah.
So just
The
figure out how to make it
customer
800 volt
optics would have
so we
probably
can-
would have been better. But yeah.
Yeah. So make it 800 volt, figure out how to, now, I don't know how you do that. That's an engineering feat to get that small battery at 800 volts. But if you can do it, now you got something. So,
Yeah.
but they're doing it in China, right? We all saw the Zeekr charging it 450 kilowatts on an 80 kilowatt pack. So
I saw one today that was at 90 some percent and there's 155 kilowatt.
yeah, it can happen. But they push their batteries. We'll see how they're toasted in 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that's just where I just want to hear from Ford. I want to know what's coming. I want to hear, yes, we're going to do this 800
Well, they had
volts.
a battery breakthrough the other day. Sodium, magnesium, whatever. And then GM came out with the same article headline 2 days later. Like it's
yeah, the manganese
base. Yeah, and then Ford's like, we'll do it by the end of the decade, and then GM's like, we'll do it by 2028. And
yeah,
meanwhile,
but we'll
China's
delay it 5 more years. Yeah.
But meanwhile, China's kicking all their butts right now and doing like every day there's a new one that's like, we'll charge, 100 kilowatt hours in 10 minutes.
Well, and who was it? Solid state is now being put into production in a couple of vehicles. So that's a whole, that could be big.
Yeah, it could be.
So we'll see. We'll see what comes. And one last thing before we wrap up,
minutes, Chris, you got any wrap up comments before we send this thing?
Yeah, I want to plug my I dropped that YouTube video finally today that took me a week to edit, and so yeah, the start of the story, right? And it shows my original Lightning, the standard range that had all the problems, and I show all of those errors. I put the history on the screen. I put the Ford Pass app alerts on the screen. I put the car scanner, every single error on the screen. If you're into that stuff, watch it on TV, because if you see it on your TV, you can literally read every single error that came down on that truck. And then it's the start of the story, and then it's going to drop every Thursday and every Monday, and each one will be a different stop. So Monday will be the stop in Arkansas with JT and Franklin's Charging, and Joel, who was just with us earlier today from EV Geeks. And then next Thursday will be where I go visit Martin. So that'll be super cool to kind of be able to post that, introduce you guys, and let you guys see what Martin Rebuilds is what that garage looks like. It's super cool, super impressive. And then after that will be another friend of the show, Tim Bartz from Long MacArthur Ford. We went and visited him and got to see his podcast room, and got to see they're making these kind of custom, they don't make the Lightning SVT anymore, but Long MacArthur Ford, just a teaser, they make their own version of it. They do Alcantara inside, they drop it, they put in superchargers. It's pretty cool to see what they're doing there. And so, yeah. And then after that, we go to visit Kyle and Out of Spec, and we do a tour of the hub, and we go and we do some charging at the Chicago power plant thing they've got there. Can't remember what they call that, the power hub or whatever that is. And then we wrap up by visiting Ben, where we went and kind of stayed with him, and tops 9,000 feet up in the Rocky Mountains. And then we make the drive home. So yeah, each week I just kind of, I don't have a 2-hour Out of Spec audience where I could throw 2 hours worth of video and have anybody. I didn't want them to watch the first 10 minutes of it and never get to see Martin, never get to see.
I did that final video of Joe's truck and did it all in one episode, and it was 30 minutes, and I'm thinking I'm going to lose some people, but I've got a lot of positive feedback because I felt like it was all wrapped up into one nice bow. But I felt like you're doing it, Chris, over 6 episodes, and it would have been fine. Yeah,
I don't want somebody to miss out on that story. I want them, to get to see all of these great people, all of these great places. And so I broke it up, and it's literally gonna take 3-4 weeks. 4 weeks. I think it'll take a month to kind of put them all out there. But I'm hoping people will watch them. I'm hoping that that'll help get me more visibility, more of an audience to share that story with, because it'll be super cool to have that happen, and then everybody then get to see EV Geek and see Martin Rebuild videos and see Long MacArthur Ford videos. Everybody knows Out of Spec. Out of Spec's not going to get a single new viewer because of me, but they were nice. And I will tell you the biggest takeaway from that trip from a creator perspective. I know it's late, guys, but I'll share this story from this Kyle story, man. So he's like, yeah, we need to do a video with this truck. And he has Alyssa grab the camera and they walk over and we just on the spot do a video, one take. And then I go to start leaving, and an hour later, I'm driving, heading to see Ben. It's an hour later, and he's like, dude, it's posted. I'm like, dude, it's been an hour. What do you mean it's posted? He's like, nah, that's just it
takes me an hour to download it and then post it from my video editing to the hard drive.
Yeah. So that was a huge takeaway from me is don't overcomplicate. Don't do 17 different videos and try to edit it together and you'll notice that on these videos, there are almost no like musical high-speed drives.
It's hard to do that for you guys. You're one. I built Joe's truck over 6 months and I put it into 3 videos. I mean, that's really have to do that editing like that. It's difficult.
Yeah. I think as much as we can keep it simple, don't need drone shots, don't need a whole bunch of musical melodies with driving through I've got some great footage, and I think at some point I'm going to edit together a bunch of the footage of me driving through the Rocky Mountains and some of the other shots and put it to some generic music, and it'll get 250 views and it won't matter, but I do want to throw it out there. I even maybe want to, but it was a great trip, and I don't want anybody to miss any of the spots. And so I'd love people, if you're watching this now, like go check it out, subscribe to it. I'm going to make a playlist so that they'll all be in one playlist and you can watch them all in succession, and whatever. So I'd love it. Like go support the people that I got to visit. I was super stoked that when Out of Spec did a video, that was my other fear. Like he's going to do a video of this lightning and 1,100 people are going to watch it. And it's got like close to 40,000 views. It was one of the top 10 videos that they had on that channel for the Out of Spec bits. So that was super cool because it got to share the story and highlight the 25 platinum lightning, and it gave it a lot of people commented.
The positivity of it, Chris. I got to tell you, Kyle's take was positive. Your take was positive. You were being truthful and transparent, but it had a good vibe, and I think that's why it's doing so well.
Yeah, good resolution.
And hopefully Ford can take that away too, right? You can be transparent and still be positive. You can show your battle scars and not have it be detrimental. In fact, I think it builds credibility when you're willing to do that, is my thought. So I would love, I took a lesson away from Kyle. I hope Ford can take a lesson away from Kyle as well and be more transparent with some of this stuff. And maybe they'll get one of these guys. Love to see Jim Farley on the show. Love to see Doug Field on the show.
I'd like to get Kyle and Tom on so we can take their how these topics we do at some point. So yeah, I think that's going to be good for future. Like I said, next Thursday we're going to try to do more. If you guys like to hear it, send us some messages. We'd like to do next more and more. Chris is going to have 2 videos dropping. Jace is going to have some good new information because hopefully he scans some stuff on his truck next week. We'll see.
I might do it.
And then I'm going to go at this point 10 o'clock, but I will report back on the Facebook groups tomorrow if lane centering turn signal works in Kansas.
Yeah, I'll try to get a video for you too of doing it.
Awesome.
Yep. All right,
y'all. Well, it was awesome as always. We will see you next week.
2.5 hours. We went long tonight, but thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate all 60 viewers we had. We do appreciate you guys. Hopefully see you guys next Thursday on Tech Charge.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.